Red Was the Color of Us is a dark romance audiobook by Amy Seymour. Narrated by Corina Thomas. Content warning: this audiobook contains mature themes including psychological manipulation, captivity, emotional trauma, non-gratuitous sexual content and violence. It is intended for mature audiences only. Chapter 1. Crimson Silk. The marble beneath my bare feet is cold as winter bones, but I can't feel it anymore. Nothing penetrates the numbness that's settled over me like a shroud as I stand on this balcony, watching 300 strangers celebrate my 19th birthday as if they actually know me. As if any of them give a damn about Ana Cicero beyond what my name can buy them. The custom Valentino gown Papa commissioned, midnight blue silk that cost more than most people's cars, clings to my body like a beautiful prison. Every stitch is perfect, every line calculated to showcase the Cicero fortune draped across my skin. I am my father's prized possession tonight, displayed like a rare jewel for his associates to admire but never touch. Through the French doors behind me, crystal chandeliers cast prismatic rainbows across faces I've seen 1,000 times but never truly known. Politicians with practiced smiles that never reach their eyes. Business associates who speak in coded language I'm not supposed to understand. Socialites who kiss my cheek and whisper poison about each other the moment they turn away. This is my world. This gilded cage suspended 20 acres above reality, where the gardens are manicured to perfection and the secrets are buried deeper than the rose beds. I trace my fingers along the stone balustrade, feeling the cool marble beneath my fingertips, and wonder what it would be like to simply let go. Not of life. I'm not that melodramatic, but of this suffocating existence where every breath feels borrowed, every smile performed. Ana, you're brooding again. Kathy's voice cuts through my dark thoughts like a blade through silk. My 15-year-old sister materializes beside me, her rebellious spirit barely contained by the rose gold dress Papa insisted she wear. Where I've learned to mask my feelings behind Cicero composure, Kathy wears her defiance like armor. I'm not brooding, I murmur, not taking my eyes off the party. I'm observing. Same thing. She leans against the balustrade, her dark hair, so like mine, catching the light from the party. You know, most girls would kill for a birthday party like this. Most girls aren't us. The truth hangs between us like a blade waiting to fall. We are not most girls. We are Silvio Cicero's daughters, raised in isolation, educated by private tutors, protected from the world in ways that feel more like imprisonment with each passing year. While other teenagers were making friends and mistakes, we were learning languages and etiquette, how to smile on command and disappear when necessary. Kathy's laugh is bitter as aged wine. Prison with silk curtains, right? Before I can answer, Papa's voice booms across the terrace, calling my name with the authority of a man accustomed to immediate obedience. I turn to see him approaching, and even after 19 years, his presence still commands attention like gravity commands falling objects. Silvio Cicero is magnificent in the way that dangerous things often are. Silver hair perfectly styled, his tuxedo tailored to his imposing frame, eyes the color of winter storms that seem to see everything and reveal nothing. At 53, he's still the most powerful man in any room he enters. But tonight something's different. As he draws closer, I notice the slight tremor in his hands, so subtle that anyone else would miss it. The way his eyes dart to the shadows beyond the party lights. The tension radiating from his shoulders despite his practiced smile. Bella mia, he says, using the endearment that sounds like both a caress and a claim. You're hiding from your own celebration. Just getting some air, Papa. He studies my face with those calculating eyes, and I wonder what he sees there. Does he recognize the caged bird looking back at him? Does he care? From his jacket he produces a velvet box that makes my breath catch. Inside, nestled against black silk, lies a necklace that seems to capture starlight. Rubies like drops of blood surrounded by diamonds that could blind. It's beautiful and terrible like everything in our world. This belonged to your grandmother, he says, his voice softer now, almost reverent. She wore it on her wedding day. And now. His hands shake slightly as he lifts it from the box. Now it's yours. As he fastens the clasp at the base of my neck, his fingers brush my skin, and I feel the weight of generations settling on my shoulders. The necklace is heavier than it looks, or maybe that's just the weight of what it represents. Legacy, tradition, the beautiful chains that bind us to this life. Thank you, Papa, I whisper, because what else can I say? That I'd rather have freedom than rubies? That I'd trade all his diamonds for one real friend? He kisses my forehead, and for a moment he's not the feared Ana Cicero. He's just a father trying to give his daughter something precious. You look like her tonight, he murmurs. Like an angel. If only he knew how tired I am of being his angel. The moment fractures as Benedetto, Papa's consigliere, appears at his elbow like a shadow given form. The man's weathered face carries news that makes Papa's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Silvio. Benedetto's voice is low, urgent. We need to talk. Papa's transformation is instantaneous. From loving father back to dangerous man. Not now, Benny. It can't wait. Something passes between them, some silent communication that makes my skin crawl with premonition. I catch fragments of their whispered conversation as they move toward the corner of the terrace. Words like debt and territory and time running out that turn my blood to ice water. Kathy appears at my side again, her young face pale in the moonlight. Anna, she whispers, something's wrong. I want to tell her she's imagining things, that we're safe in our gilded tower, but the lie tastes like ash in my mouth. Because I can feel it too, the electricity in the air before a storm, the way the security guards have multiplied around the perimeter, how Papa's phone has been buzzing all evening with calls he steps away to take. Girls, Papa returns, his smile too bright, his voice too controlled. Go inside. Dance, enjoy yourselves. It's Anna's night. It's a command disguised as a suggestion, and we both know it. But as we turn to go, I catch one last glimpse of my father in profile against the night sky. For just a moment the mask slips and I see something that terrifies me more than all his power ever could. I see fear. The next 2 hours pass like a fever dream. I dance with sons of senators and heirs to fortunes, their hands respectful but possessive as they guide me across the marble floor. I make polite conversation about art and travel and all the safe topics that skirt the edges of what we really are. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm performing in a play where someone's forgotten to give me the final act. Kathy hovers near the dessert table, her sharp tongue keeping unwanted suitors at bay with cutting observations about their cologne or their dancing. She's always been my shield in social situations, her irreverence a stark contrast to my practiced diplomacy. The Barzelli boy keeps staring at you, she murmurs as I join her, accepting a crystal flute of champagne I'm not supposed to have. Like you're a prize mare he's considering purchasing. Papa probably promised him a dance, I reply, watching the young man in question hover near the orchestra. Panenka Barzelli, handsome in a conventional way, heir to a shipping fortune, absolutely safe. The kind of husband Papa would choose for me. The kind of life that would slowly suffocate me. Over my dead body, Kathy growls, and something about the way she says it makes my blood chill. The clock on the mantelpiece chimes 11:30, and I realize with a start that my birthday is nearly over. 19 years old, and what do I have to show for it? A necklace heavy with history, a closet full of beautiful clothes, and a future as predetermined as a chess game played by masters. I'm about to suggest we slip away to our rooms when I notice the change in atmosphere. Conversations are dying mid-sentence. Heads are turning toward the front of the estate. Even the orchestra seems to sense something, their music growing tentative. Then I hear it, the sound that will haunt my dreams for years to come. The first gunshot shatters the crystal champagne flute in my hand. For a heartbeat, the world stands still. The classical music continues its elegant melody while blood wells from the cuts on my palm where the glass bit deep. 300 guests frozen in a tableau of confusion, their faces reflecting the crystal light like a gallery of beautiful mannequins. Then chaos erupts like a dam bursting. Screams pierce the air as 4 black SUVs crash through the ornate iron gates that have protected Villa Cicero for 50 years. The sound of twisting metal and roaring engines mingles with the crystal symphony of shattering champagne glasses as they hit the marble floor. I watch in horrified fascination as masked figures pour from the vehicles like smoke given form. They move with military precision, automatic weapons gleaming under the party lights like deadly jewelry. The contrast is obscene, violence blooming in the middle of our careful beauty like blood on silk. The acrid smell of gunpowder fills the air, mixing with the scent of expensive perfume and fierce sweat. Designer gowns become streaked with crimson as guests flee in panic, their careful composure dissolving into animal terror. Anna. Kathy's scream cuts through the chaos, and I see her crouched behind an overturned table, her rose gold dress torn, her face white as bone. I move toward her instinctively, but strong hands grip my shoulders. Stay down, stay quiet. Papa's voice is harsh with command and something else. Something that sounds dangerously like desperation. This is not the composed Silvio Cicero who rules his empire with iron control. This is a man whose carefully constructed world is crumbling around him. He pulls both Kathy and me toward the house, his grip tight enough to bruise. I catch glimpses of horror as we move, blood spreading across marble like spilled wine, bodies that will never dance again, the screams of people I've known my entire life being cut short by violence I never imagined could touch our protected world. Papa, what's happening? My voice sounds small and foreign to my own ears. Old debts, he says grimly, pushing us through a door I've never noticed before, hidden behind a tapestry depicting the Cicero family tree. Coming due. The hidden passage is narrow and dusty, lit by emergency lighting that casts everything in hellish red. Family portraits line the walls. Generations of Ciceros watching our desperate flight with painted eyes that seem to judge and find us wanting. My grandmother's necklace catches the light, the rubies glowing like drops of blood against my throat. I touch it instinctively, drawing strength from its weight, and wonder if she ever ran through these same passages, fleeing from consequences she couldn't escape. The passage opens into Papa's private study, and he immediately moves to the massive safe behind his desk, his hands shaking as he enters the combination. Through the tall windows I can see more vehicles arriving. This isn't a robbery or a random attack. This is a siege planned and executed with military precision. Papa. Kathy's voice is small and scared, younger than her 15 years. Papa, I'm frightened. I know, Bambina. I know. But his attention is on the safe, on whatever he's desperately trying to retrieve from its depths. That's when the study door explodes inward. 6 men in tactical gear pour through the shattered doorway like a black tide, their weapons trained on us with professional efficiency. But it's the figure who follows them that makes my blood turn to ice in my veins. He's tall and broad-shouldered, moving with the fluid grace of a predator who's never known fear. Dark hair perfectly styled despite the violence he's orchestrated. A tailored suit without a single wrinkle to suggest he's been directing a massacre. But it's the leather eye patch that marks him, covering his left eye like a badge of honor earned through violence. The remaining eye is the color of storm clouds, And when it settles on me, I feel exposed, vulnerable, as if he can see through my skin to the secrets buried in my bones. He commands attention without saying a word, radiating power in a way that makes even Papa seem diminished in comparison. This is not a man who follows orders. This is a man who gives them, who shapes the world to his will through force and fear. Silvio Cicero. His voice is velvet wrapped around steel, cultured and dangerous. There's an accent there, something old world and sophisticated that makes my skin prickle with unwanted awareness. You've been a very difficult man to find. Papa straightens, drawing on reserves of dignity I didn't know he possessed. Damon Vane. I should have known. So this is Damon Vane. I've heard the name whispered in Papa's phone conversations, spoken with the kind of reverence reserved for natural disasters and divine wrath. But I never imagined he would be so magnetic. So impossibly, dangerously beautiful. You should have paid, Damon replies, circling us like a shark scenting blood. His attention keeps returning to me, and each glance feels like a physical touch, unwanted, intrusive, and somehow electric. Instead, you chose to hide behind lawyers and distance. Papa attempts to negotiate, his voice taking on the wheeling tone I've heard him use with business associates. I can pay now. Money, territory, whatever you want. Just spare my daughters. They're innocent in this. The sound that escapes Damon's throat might charitably be called laughter, but it carries no warmth. Innocent? In this family. His gaze locks with mine, and I feel something shift in the air between us, dangerous and inevitable as gravity. I wonder. He rolls up his sleeve with deliberate slowness, revealing a scar that runs from wrist to elbow, thick and white and obviously the result of terrible violence. Your debt isn't financial, old man. You took something from me that can never be replaced. His voice drops to a whisper that somehow carries more menace than any shout. This is just interest. I watch in growing horror as his men force Papa to his knees on the Persian rug where I used to play as a child. This can't be happening. This is Villa Cicero, our sanctuary, our protected world. Harm doesn't get to us here. But as Damon draws a silver pistol from inside his jacket, its surface engraved with intricate patterns that catch the light like deadly art, I realize how naive I've been. Violence has always been here, lurking beneath the silk and crystal. I just chose not to see it. Take the girls to the car, Damon commands without taking his eyes off Papa. His voice is matter-of-fact, as if he's ordering coffee rather than orchestrating our kidnapping. As his men move toward us, I try to memorize every detail of this moment. The last seconds of my old life. The way moonlight streams through the window, painting everything silver. The sound of Papa's labored breathing. The weight of my grandmother's necklace against my throat, suddenly feeling like a noose. No, I whisper, the word torn from my throat. Please. Damon pauses, his storm gray eye finding mine across the room. For a heartbeat, I see something flicker in his expression. Regret, perhaps, or recognition of some shared humanity. But it's gone so quickly I might have imagined it. I'm sorry you have to see this, Annabelle, he says softly, and the fact that he knows my name sends ice through my veins. But some lessons can only be learned through witness. The gunshot echoes through the study like thunder splitting the sky. Papa's body hits the Persian rug with a sound I'll hear in my nightmares, final and irreversible. Blood spreads beneath him like spilled wine, dark and rich and wrong on the beautiful fabric where I used to sit and read while he worked. My scream dies in my throat, strangled by shock and horror and the terrible understanding that my father, the most powerful man I've ever known, is gone. Just like that. One moment commanding empires, the next a cooling corpse on an expensive rug. Damon holsters his weapon with practiced efficiency, then surprises me by kneeling beside Papa's body. He speaks words too quiet to hear, and I see him pocket something from Papa's jacket. A small leather journal I've never seen before. As his men escort us from the room, Kathy sobbing, me in numb shock, I catch one last glimpse of the study. Damon still kneels beside my father's body, his head bowed as if in prayer or regret. The sight burns itself into my memory like a brand. The hallways of my childhood pass in a blur of tears and terror. Servants I've known my entire life cower in corners or lie still on marble floors stained with crimson. The beautiful world Papa built around us is dying, consumed by violence and flame. Outside, the night air tastes of smoke and fear. I can see flames consuming the east wing, my wing, where my bedroom holds a lifetime of memories that are turning to ash. The rose gardens Papa had planted for my mother are trampled under military boots. They separate us at the cars. Kathy shoved into one black SUV, me into another. Through the bulletproof glass, I watch my sister's terrified face disappear into the night, and I wonder if I'll ever see her again. As my prison on wheels pulls away from Villa Cicero, I press my face against the window and watch my world burn. The flames reach toward the stars like desperate prayers, consuming everything I've ever known. The last thing I see is Damon Vane silhouetted against the inferno, watching our departure with an expression I can't read. In his hand, the leather journal he stole from Papa's body catches the firelight like a promise or a threat. Then we round the curve in the drive, and Villa Cicero disappears forever, taking the last 19 years of my life with it. I am no longer Annabelle Cicero, beloved daughter and protected princess. I am something else now, something unnamed and dangerous. And as the city lights blur past the window and my grandmother's necklace burns like ice against my throat, I make a promise to myself. I will survive this, whatever it takes. Chapter 2, Birdcage. The first thing I notice isn't the silk sheets or the Italian marble. It's the silence. Complete, suffocating silence that presses against my eardrums like water at the bottom of a deep pool. No traffic. No voices. No life beyond these walls. I sit up slowly, my body protesting every movement. My ribs ache where I hit the marble floor during last night's chaos, and there's a bruise blooming across my left shoulder like a dark flower. The events rush back in fragments. Gunfire, screams, Papa's blood spreading across his Persian rug like spilled wine. Papa is dead. The thought hits me fresh, stealing my breath. I press my palms against my eyes, trying to stop the images, but they play on repeat. Damon Vane's cold smile, the casual way he pulled the trigger, how Papa's eyes went blank in an instant. When I finally force myself to look around, I realize I'm in a bedroom that makes Villa Cicero look modest. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretch across one entire wall, revealing an endless expanse of turquoise water that sparkles under the morning sun. A private beach curves away in both directions, pristine white sand meeting crystal-clear waves. Paradise, if paradise came with invisible chains. The bed beneath me is enormous, draped in cream silk and gold accents. Everything in this room whispers of wealth. The hand-carved furniture that probably costs more than most people's homes, the Persian rugs that feel like clouds beneath my bare feet, the crystal chandelier that throws rainbow fragments across the walls. Even the air smells expensive, jasmine and sea salt with an undertone of something exotic I can't identify. I swing my legs over the side of the bed, noting that someone has changed my clothes. Gone is the blood-stained black dress from my birthday party. Instead, I'm wearing a silk nightgown in dove gray, perfectly fitted and more luxurious than anything in my own wardrobe. The violation of it, someone undressing me while I was unconscious, makes my skin crawl. The bathroom door is slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of marble and gold fixtures. I stand on unsteady legs, my bare feet silent on the Persian rug as I explore my prison. Because that's what this is, isn't it? A beautiful, suffocating cage. The bathroom takes my breath away despite everything. The bathtub could easily fit 3 people, carved from a single piece of white marble with gold fixtures that gleam like jewelry. The shower is a work of art. Multiple heads arranged in a configuration that promises to turn bathing into a sensual experience. Toiletries line marble shelves. La Prairie, Tom Ford, brands I recognize from the most exclusive boutiques in Milan. Everything is perfectly arranged, waiting for me. The attention to detail is what unsettles me most. This isn't a hastily prepared room. This is a space designed specifically for me. How long has Damon been planning this? How long has he been watching, studying, preparing? I catch my reflection in the mirror and barely recognize myself. My dark hair hangs in waves around my shoulders, no longer perfectly styled. My olive skin has a pallor that makes my green eyes look almost luminous. But it's the expression that startles me. I look older, haunted in a way that makes me think of old Renaissance paintings of martyred saints. The closet is another revelation. It's larger than my bedroom at home, filled with clothes in exactly my size. Casual wear, business attire, evening gowns that would make Valentino weep with envy. I run my fingers over silk and cashmere, my hands trembling. How does he know my measurements so precisely? The thought makes my stomach clench with unease. I select a simple black dress. Appropriate for morning, I tell myself, though the cut is anything but modest. It hugs my curves in ways that make me feel exposed even fully clothed. But it's better than the nightgown, which feels too intimate, too vulnerable. The windows don't open. I discover this after several minutes of searching for latches, handles, any way to let in fresh air. The glass is thick, probably bulletproof, and offers a crystal-clear view of freedom I can't touch. I press my palm against the cool surface, watching the waves beyond, and wonder if Kathy is looking at the same ocean. Kathy. My heart clenches. Where is my sister? Is she safe? The woman, Lydia, I think her name was, indicated Kathy was alive, but that could have been a lie to keep me compliant. A soft knock interrupts my spiraling thoughts. The door opens without waiting for my permission, and Lydia enters carrying a silver tray. She's middle-aged with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her smile is gentle, motherly, and it makes me want to cry. Buongiorno, signorina, she says softly, setting the tray on a small table by the windows. The scent of fresh coffee and warm pastries fills the air, making my stomach growl despite my grief. Hi, sister, I say in Italian, hoping she'll understand. Where is my sister? Lydia's expression grows cautious. She mimes with her hands, a girl, safe, nearby but separate. The relief that floods through me is so intense I have to sit down. Kathy is alive. Whatever game Damon is playing, he's kept his word about that much. Lydia pours coffee from a silver pot. The liquid dark as sin and twice as tempting. She adds cream and sugar without asking, somehow knowing exactly how I prefer it. The observation unnerves me. What else does she know about my habits? The breakfast is exquisite. Fresh fruit, delicate pastries that melt on my tongue, eggs prepared perfectly. I eat mechanically, tasting nothing. My mind is elsewhere, calculating, planning. There has to be a way out of here. There's always a way out. But as the hours pass, I begin to understand the true nature of my captivity. The room may be beautiful, but it's also a fortress. The door locks from the outside. The windows are impenetrable. Even the beautiful view becomes oppressive when you realize it's the only thing you're allowed to see of the world. I spend the first day pacing like a caged animal, examining every inch of my prison. I count my steps. The room is 37 feet long by 25 feet wide. I memorize every detail, looking for weaknesses, escape routes, Anything that might help me later. But Damon has thought of everything. Books line built-in shelves. Classic literature, modern fiction, even some of my favorite poets. How did he know I loved Neruda? The personal touch feels like a caress and a violation all at once. I pull down a volume of love sonnets and immediately put it back, my hands shaking. By evening, I'm exhausted from nervous energy and suppressed panic. Lydia brings dinner. More exquisite food I can barely taste, and tries to make conversation with her limited English and my rusty Italian. She tells me she has grandchildren, shows me photos of smiling babies with dark curls. Her normalcy in this surreal situation is almost worse than if she'd been cruel. Quando? I begin, then switch to English, hoping she understands. When will I see him? Damon. Lydia's face grows carefully neutral. Domani, she says simply. Tomorrow. That night, I lie awake staring at the ceiling, watching moonlight paint silver patterns across the cream silk walls. The ocean whispers beyond my window, a constant reminder of the freedom I've lost. I think about Papa, about the way his hand shook when he gave me the necklace. Did he know? Did he suspect this was coming? Sleep comes in fragments, broken by nightmares of gunshots and blood. I wake with tears on my cheeks and Damon's voice echoing in my mind. Watch carefully, Bella. The endearment haunts me. How can someone speak so gently while committing murder? The second day passes much like the first. Lydia brings meals and offers small kindnesses. Fresh flowers for the nightstand, a soft cashmere throw for the reading chair. But kindness in captivity feels poisoned, no matter how genuine. I find myself analyzing every gesture, looking for manipulation, for weakness I can exploit. On the third day he comes. I'm sitting by the window, pretending to read Dante's Inferno. The irony isn't lost on me when I hear the lock click. My pulse jumps and I hate myself for the reaction. It's not fear alone that makes my heart race. There's anticipation too, and that terrifies me more than anything. Damon enters like he owns not just the room but the very air inside it. Gone is the tactical gear from that terrible night. Instead, he wears a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably costs more than most people's cars. The fabric moves with him like liquid shadow, emphasizing the predatory grace of his movements. But the eye patch remains, black leather that gives him an air of dangerous sophistication, like a gentleman pirate who's traded his ship for a boardroom. He's more beautiful than I remembered, and I hate that I notice. His remaining eye is storm gray, sharp with intelligence and something else I can't identify. His dark hair is perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. He radiates power and control, and despite everything, despite what he did to Papa, I feel my body respond to his presence. Buongiorno, Annabelle, he says, his voice cultured, warm. He might be greeting a friend rather than his prisoner. I trust you've been comfortable? I close the book with deliberate care, using the moment to steady myself. You killed my father. Yes. No denial, no justification. Just simple fact delivered with the same tone he might use to comment on the weather. And now you expect me to make small talk about the accommodations? A smile tugs at the corner of his mouth. I expect nothing. But I hoped we might have a civilized conversation. He settles into the leather armchair across from me with fluid grace, crossing one leg over the other. The gesture is casual, unthreatening, but I'm acutely aware that he's positioned between me and the door. Not that it matters. Where would I run? You're probably wondering why you're here, he continues, his accent carrying hints of Italy and something else. British boarding school, perhaps. The contradiction intrigues me against my will. I remain standing, my spine rigid with a defiance that feels paper-thin. Enlighten me. My original plan was quite simple. His tone is conversational, as if we're discussing the weather rather than my fate. Your father's enemies have been quite vocal about their desire for revenge. The Galvani family in particular has been asking for Silvio's head for years. The name sends ice through my veins. Even sheltered as I was, I knew the Galvani reputation. They were animals who made Papa's organization look civilized by comparison. I thought they might enjoy unwrapping his daughters like Christmas presents, Damon continues, his words delivered with casual cruelty that makes my skin crawl. A final insult to add to their victory. I sink into my chair despite myself, my legs suddenly unsteady. The image he's painted is clear, horrifying. I've heard whispers about what men like the Galvanis do to their enemies' women. Death would be a mercy compared to that fate. But then, Damon says, leaning forward slightly, I discovered something interesting. He produces a familiar leather journal from his jacket, Papa's private book, the one he always kept locked in his desk. I haven't seen it since I was a child, when curiosity led me to try picking the lock until Papa caught me and delivered a lecture about respecting privacy. Your father was more clever than I gave him credit for, Damon says, running his fingers over the worn leather. Hidden accounts, offshore investments, legitimate businesses carefully woven through his criminal enterprises. He built quite the empire beneath his more visible activities. The words sink in slowly. I'm not just a prisoner. I'm an asset. The knowledge both sickens and strangely empowers me. Assets have value. Value means leverage. So this is about money, I say, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. Everything is about money, Bella. But this is about much more than that. His eye meets mine and I see something dark and complex swirling in those gray depths. This is about justice. About balance. About old debts that have gone too long unpaid. Your father's legitimate holdings are substantial. Restaurants, hotels, import businesses, all clean, all profitable, all currently in legal limbo while the authorities sort through the mess of his criminal enterprises. Understanding dawns on me slowly, like a sunrise I wish I could prevent. You need me to access them. Precisely. He leans forward and I catch a hint of expensive cologne, something dark and complex that probably costs more than I want to know. As Silvio's heir, you have legal claim to his legitimate assets. With the right legal maneuvering, we can separate the clean money from the dirty, leaving you with a considerable inheritance and me with a significant return on my investment. Investment. The word comes out as a croak. Keeping you alive, Miss Cicero. Keeping you safe. Keeping you fed and clothed and housed in the manner to which you've become accustomed. His smile returns, and this time it's definitely not kind. Make no mistake, you are an asset to be managed, not a guest to be entertained. I want to slap him. I want to scream at him to tell him that I'm not a commodity to be bought and sold. But I also want to live, and something in his tone tells me that my survival depends on my cooperation. And if I refuse? He stands up, smoothing down his suit jacket. But I don't think you'll refuse, Miss Cicero. You're far too intelligent for that. There's someone here to see you, he says, and I turn to see a familiar figure in the doorway. Ana. Kathy's voice cracks like a whip, and she rushes toward me with tears streaming down her face. I catch her in my arms, holding her tight as she sobs against my shoulder. But even as I comfort my sister, I can't take my eyes off Damon. He's watching our reunion with something that might be satisfaction, and I realize this is all part of his plan. He's showing me what I have to lose, what he can take away if I don't cooperate. Kathy has lost weight. I can feel it in the way her clothes hang loose on her frame, in the sharpness of her shoulder blades under my palms. Her eyes are hollow with grief and rage, and when she sees Damon standing there, her entire body goes rigid with hatred. You bastard, she spits, pulling away from me to face him. You murdering bastard. Kathy, don't. I start, but she's already moved, her hand raised as if to strike him. Damon catches her wrist effortlessly, his grip firm. She has spirit, he observes, his voice carrying a note of amusement. I can see why your father kept you both so sheltered. You might have been dangerous if you'd had proper training. He releases Kathy's wrist and she stumbles backward, her face flushed with humiliation and fury. I step between them, my protective instincts overriding my fear. Leave her alone, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. Whatever you want from me, she's not part of it. On the contrary, Damon replies, producing a silk handkerchief from his pocket and wiping his hands as if Kathy's touch had somehow contaminated him. She's very much a part of it. You see, Bella, I've found that people are far more cooperative when they have something to lose. The threat is clear and I feel something cold settle in my chest. This man holds all the cards and he knows it. Kathy's safety depends on my compliance, just as my survival depends on his continued goodwill. Now, he continues, I think it's time we discussed your father's true nature. There are things about Ana Cicero that you need to understand if we're going to have a successful business relationship. The next hour is a masterclass in psychological warfare disguised as dinner conversation. Damon leads us to a private dining room where Lydia has prepared a meal that could rival anything served in the finest restaurants. The table is set with china that probably belongs in a museum, and the wine he pours spells high status. But I can barely taste any of it. My attention is focused entirely on Damon as he begins systematically dismantling everything I thought I knew about my father. He opens the journal, flipping through pages covered in Papa's precise handwriting. Did you know your father ordered the deaths of 17 people over the years? Men, women, he wasn't particular about collateral damage. Each word lands like a stone thrown at glass, creating cracks in the image of the protective father I thought I knew. I want to argue to defend Papa's memory, but the conviction in Damon's voice stops me. This isn't propaganda. It's truth delivered without malice or satisfaction, just weary certainty. That's impossible, I whisper, but even as I say it, I remember things. Hushed phone calls that stopped when I entered rooms, Papa's long absences explained as business trips, the way certain names made him grow cold and distant. Your father was involved in human trafficking, drug running, political corruption. He owned judges, police commissioners, senators. Damon's voice remains steady, clinical. The Cicero name opened doors that should have remained closed, bought silence that should have been screams for justice. I think of all the charity galas we attended, the politicians who kissed Papa's ring, the way powerful men sought his approval. I'd thought it was respect for his business acumen. Now I understand it was fear or complicity. Why are you telling me this? My voice cracks despite my efforts to stay strong. Because I want you to understand who your father really was. And more importantly, I want you to understand who I am. He closes the journal and sets it aside, then reaches into his jacket again. This time he produces a photograph. Aged, creased, obviously treasured. He hands it to me without speaking. The boy in the photo looks remarkably like Damon, but younger, softer. His smile is bright and innocent, untouched by the darkness that shadows Damon's features. He's wearing a school uniform, holding a diploma, pride radiating from every line of his body. His name was Luca, Damon says quietly, his voice carrying a weight that makes my chest tighten. My younger brother. He was 17 when your father had him killed. The photograph trembles in my hands. I don't understand. Luca was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Your father was expanding into new territory in Naples, trying to push out a rival family. There was a bombing, a cafe where university students liked to study. Luca was there working on an essay about social justice. The bitter irony in his voice is unmistakable. 12 people died that day. Collateral damage, your father called it in his report to the commission. I stare at the photograph, seeing the resemblance more clearly now. The same strong jaw, the same intelligent eyes. But where Damon's face is sharp with experience and loss, Luca's is soft with dreams and possibility. He wanted to be a teacher, Damon continues, his voice barely above a whisper. He used to say that children were the future, that education could save the world from men like your father. Like me. The vulnerability in his voice cracks something inside my chest. This isn't the cold-blooded killer from that night. This is a man still grieving his brother, still carrying a wound that hasn't healed after what must be years. How long ago? I ask softly. 8 years, 3 months, 12 days. The precision tells me everything I need to know about how deeply this loss cut him. I've been planning my revenge ever since. I hand the photograph back, my fingers brushing his as he takes it. The contact sends an unexpected jolt through me. He's warm, human, more than the monster I've been trying to make him in my mind. I feel something crack inside my chest. Not just my heart, but my entire understanding of the world. The man sitting across from me isn't just a criminal seeking profit. He's a brother seeking justice. A man who lost the person he loved most to my father's cruelty. I'm sorry, I whisper, and I mean it. I'm so sorry. Damon studies me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Are you? Or are you simply sorry that you've been caught in the crossfire? The question hangs in the air between us, and I realize I don't know the answer. Am I sorry for his loss, or am I sorry for myself? Is my sympathy genuine, or is it just another survival mechanism? I don't know, I admit, and something in my honesty seems to surprise him. At least you're honest, he says, raising his wine glass in a mock toast. That's more than I can say for most people in your position. At this point, he ordered one of his henchmen to take my sister back to her room. She resisted at first, scared to part with me again. I assured her everything was going to be all right, that no harm would come to either of us. My big sister words of assurance calmed her nerves. I then kissed her goodnight before she was led away. So this is about revenge, I say, turning to Damon. It was. But revenge is a living thing, Bella. It grows, changes, evolves. His eye searches my face, looking for something I don't understand. Sometimes it becomes something else entirely. There's something in his tone that makes my pulse quicken, a suggestion of possibilities I don't want to examine too closely. I stand abruptly, needing distance, needing air. I need to see my sister regularly. Of course. He rises as well, moving with that predatory grace that both attracts and terrifies me. Lydia will escort you after lunch. But Annabelle. He steps closer, close enough that I can smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that makes me think of midnight gardens. Your sister is struggling more than you are with our current arrangement. The warning in his voice is clear. I nod, not trusting my voice. The air between us feels charged, dangerous. I'm hyper-aware of his presence, of the way he seems to fill the room just by existing in it. There's something else we need to discuss, he says, his voice dropping to that intimate register that makes my skin prickle. Your inheritance. Yes, I know I've mentioned it before. What about it? You're not just Silvio's daughter, you're his heir. And that makes you very powerful, very valuable, and very dangerous to a lot of people. His eye holds mine steadily. It also makes you my partner in this, whether you want to be or not. The word partner hangs in the air between us, loaded with implications I'm not ready to face. Because despite everything, despite Papa's death, despite my captivity, despite the rational voice in my head screaming warnings, I feel a dangerous pull toward this man who destroyed my world. I never asked for any of this, I whisper. None of us ask for the lives we're given, Bella. We can only choose what to do with them. He moves toward the door, then pauses, looking back at me. Dinner is at 8 if you'd like to join me. The dining room overlooks the garden. I think you'd find it beautiful. It's phrased as an invitation, but we both know it's a command dressed in silk. Still, the courtesy touches something in me I thought he'd destroyed. After he leaves, I sink back into my chair, my hands shaking. The photograph of Luca has changed everything. Damon isn't just a monster. He's a man shaped by loss, driven by grief I understand too well. And that makes him infinitely more dangerous than a simple villain would be. Because now I'm beginning to see the human beneath the predator. And God help me, I think I'm starting to care about what I find there. Chapter 3, Traitor. The morning light filtering through my bedroom windows feels different today. Not warmer. Nothing about this place could ever feel warm, but expectant. Like the calm before a storm I can't yet see approaching. I've been here 6 days now, and I've learned to read the rhythms of my captivity. The soft knock at 7:30 means breakfast. The heavier footsteps in the hallway at 10 belong to Damon's lieutenant, Frank. And the silence that falls over the compound between 2 and 4 in the afternoon? That's when Damon handles his darker business. But today something's different. Today there's no silence at 2 o'clock. Instead there's a knock at my door. Not Lydia's gentle rap, but something more deliberate. More confident. Come in, I call, though we both know the door isn't locked to keep people out. It's locked to keep me in. Damon enters, and I hate how my pulse quickens at the sight of him. He's wearing a charcoal suit today, perfectly tailored, with a burgundy tie that makes his remaining eye look almost amber in the afternoon light. The eye patch is black leather, expensive looking, and I find myself wondering, not for the first time, what lies beneath it. Good afternoon, Annabelle. His voice is smooth, cultured. Nothing like the harsh commands he barked the night he killed my father. I trust you slept well? As well as one can in a prison, I reply, lifting my chin with what I hope passes for defiance. He smiles at that, a genuine expression that transforms his face entirely. Prison? I prefer to think of it as protective custody. Protecting me from what? Protecting you from the consequences of your father's choices. He moves closer and I catch his scent, expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Danger maybe. Or death. Walk with me. It's not a request. These walks have become routine. Every few days, Damon appears at my door with that same polite invitation that isn't really an invitation at all. We walk through his compound, and I'm beginning to understand just how vast it is. The main house sprawls across what must be 20 acres, with gardens that rival anything at Villa Cicero, a private beach that stretches for miles, and security that would make the president envious. Today he's leading me through what he calls his study, though it's more like a library that belonged to some 19th century scholar. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves line 3 walls, filled with volumes in English, Italian, Spanish, and what looks like Russian. A massive desk dominates the center of the room, its surface covered with maps, financial documents, and, surprisingly, a worn copy of Dante's Divine Comedy. You read Italian? I ask, genuinely curious despite myself. Among other things. He picks up the book, running his fingers along the worn leather binding. My grandmother used to read this to me when I was young. Before she died. Before everything went to hell. There's something in his voice, a softness I haven't heard before. It makes him seem almost human. The thought disturbs me more than his cruelty ever did. What happened to her? His jaw tightens. Your father happened to her. The words hit me like ice water. What do you mean? Sit down, Annabelle. He gestures to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. There's more sick stuff you need to learn about the man you called Papa. I've been having nightmares. Not about the night Damon killed my father, though those dreams come too, but about the stories he's been telling me. Stories about Silvio Cicero's empire, about the lives destroyed in his wake, about the innocents caught in his web of violence and greed. The proofs ranged from photos of Papa with gang leaders and recorded phone calls to videos of Papa torturing and sometimes executing people pleading for their lives. The videos were the most difficult for me, not just because of the gory content but because Papa seemed to have recorded them himself. Today's revelation was another hellish one. A photo, grainy, taken from a distance, of a boxer sparring with what appears to be a trainer. March 15, 2011, Damon says, his voice eerily calm. Your father was sexually harassing one of the bottle girls at a club he frequents in Harlem. My uncle Andrea, a bouncer recruited 3 days earlier, intervened and scolded your father. Your father was with his friends and they found the castigation amusing. But your father wasn't amused. He felt insulted. Now your father could have confronted Andrea right there like a man. But he didn't. Instead he did the cowardly thing of having corrupt cops drug and kidnap him. They brought him to your father's torture chamber where he was tied to a chair. At this point, Damon attached a thumb drive he claimed was retrieved from my father's study to his laptop. He scrolls through the files on the thumb drive before briefly stopping at and clicking on a video titled, Fun with Andrea. Fun with Andrea. I say the title aloud slowly, looking confused. Your father was a sadistic sociopath, Damon said, providing an answer to the seemingly obvious question expressed by the bewildered look on my face. As I watch the video, something about it seems familiar. Papa laughing hysterically as he strikes a bound man repeatedly with a club, the man screaming in agony. I stare at the screen, my hands trembling. Who is the man that's tied up? Andrea Vane. My heart stops. Not because of the revealed identity but because I just remembered where and when I had seen this video. It was in Papa's study. I was 9 years old. That morning I had gone into Papa's study to wish him a happy birthday, ignoring the "Do not enter" post on the door. Papa was immersed in a phone call and didn't notice me standing there watching this horrific video on the television. When he saw me, he quickly hit the pause button. You shouldn't be here. Where is that useless babysitter? I remember him yelling angrily. Before I could apologize for my intrusion, his countenance suddenly changed and he was friendly. He smiled and gave me a long hug. He explained the video as a cameo appearance for an action movie that was currently being shot in our city. I remember being delighted at the thought of my father being a movie star. And here I am 10 years later feeling like an idiot. He was more than an uncle. He was like a father to me. His voice breaks on the words just slightly but enough for me to hear the pain underneath. I can't breathe. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You were kept in your ivory tower, protected from the reality of your father's world. But ignorance doesn't erase complicity. I was 12. I was a child. So was Luca. The room spins around me. I grip the arms of my chair, fighting the urge to vomit. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what your father took from me. What your family took from me. He leans forward, his single eye boring into mine. And because I need you to understand what I'm going to take from yours. Something's changing between us. I can feel it in the way he looks at me, in the way his fingers linger when he hands me a book, in the way he seems to catch himself before saying something he might regret. And God help me, I can feel it in myself too. Today he brought me a first edition of Wuthering Heights. The irony isn't lost on me. A story about destructive passion, about love that consumes and destroys everything in its path. I thought you might enjoy this, he says, setting it on the small table beside my chair. Though I'm not sure Heathcliff and Catherine's story ends the way you'd like. I've read it before. I trace the gold lettering on the cover. It's not a love story. It's a tragedy. All the best love stories are tragedies. Something in his tone makes me look up. He's watching me with an expression I can't quite read. Hunger maybe, or something deeper. Something that makes my pulse race despite everything I know about him. Is that what you think this is? I ask, gesturing between us. A love story? I think, he says slowly, that you're far more complicated than your father ever gave you credit for. And I think you're beginning to see that I'm not the monster you expected me to be. You killed my father. Yes. You're holding me prisoner. Yes. You destroyed my entire world. Yes. He moves closer and I should step back, should maintain distance, but my feet seem rooted to the floor. And yet you're still here talking to me. Still taking my books. Still looking at me like you're trying to figure out whether I'm salvation or damnation. Maybe I'm just trying to survive. Maybe. His hand reaches out, almost touching my cheek before he pulls it back. Or maybe you're beginning to understand that survival and damnation aren't mutually exclusive. The compound has been buzzing with activity for 3 days. Men in expensive suits arrive at all hours, speaking in hushed tones about territories and percentages and problems that need to be handled. I've learned to read the signs. When Frank cleans his guns, when the cook prepares meals for 20 instead of 5, when Damon's jaw tightens in that particular way that means someone is about to have a very bad day. Today I'm in the library when raised voices draw my attention. The study door is slightly ajar, and I can hear Damon speaking in rapid Italian to someone I don't recognize. Can't be trusted. Not after what happened in Miami. But the profit margins. Profit margins mean nothing if we're all dead, Fabio. Damon's voice is ice cold. The Galvanis want the Cicero daughters delivered to them. And some of our own people are starting to wonder if maybe they have a point. My blood turns to ice. The Galvanis. That name again. I remember that name from childhood, whispered in dark corners when Papa's men thought I wasn't listening. One of the old families, traditionalists who believed in blood feuds and eye for an eye justice. But this isn't about justice. Damon gave them justice the day he killed my father. According to Damon, this is about money. The Galvani bosses know from their past business deals with my father that Silvio Cicero had at least $100 million hidden in Caribbean banks, especially in the Cayman Islands. They view the fortune he left behind as a loot they are entitled to. As his heirs, we are the key to that loot. Damon had informed them that my sister and I are his to keep. I believe his words were, "To the victor go the spoils, and I'm not keen on sharing." However, Damon's men believe it is simply about eliminating Silvio's descendants. "What about the younger one?" the other voice asks. "She's been nothing but trouble since she got here." "Kathy stays alive," Damon says firmly. "They both do. That's not up for negotiation." "And if the others don't agree?" There's a long pause. "Then, they will." The finality in his voice makes me shiver. I back away from the door, but not before I hear him add, "Schedule a meeting with the underbosses. It's time to remind them who makes the decisions around here." The meeting happened 3 days ago. I didn't see it, but I felt its aftermath. The way the men looked at Damon with a mixture of fear and respect. The way Frank walked with a slight limp. The way 2 of the guards who'd been here since I arrived suddenly weren't here anymore. Damon hasn't spoken about it, but he's been different since then. More intense. More focused on me in a way that makes my skin prickle with awareness. Tonight he's brought dinner to my room. Something he's never done before. Not a tray from the kitchen, but a full meal on fine china, with candles and wine and food that smells like heaven. "What's the occasion?" I ask, though I'm already reaching for the wine glass. I've discovered that a little alcohol makes these encounters more bearable. Or maybe it just makes me more honest about what I'm feeling. Do I need an occasion to have dinner with a beautiful woman? You need an occasion to have dinner with your prisoner. He sets down his fork, studying me with that penetrating gaze. Are you my prisoner, Annabelle? Or are you something else entirely? The question hangs in the air between us, dangerous and loaded with possibilities I don't want to examine too closely. I don't know, I admit. Some days I wake up and I hate you so much I can barely breathe. Other days I find myself looking forward to seeing you. And that terrifies me more than the hatred ever did. He's quiet for a long moment, turning his wine glass in his hands. Do you know what the worst part about losing Luca was? The change of subject catches me off guard. What? It wasn't the grief. Grief is clean, pure. It's love with nowhere to go. The worst part was the emptiness that came after. The way everything just stopped mattering. Food had no taste. Music had no melody. Even revenge felt hollow. And now I find myself caring about things again. Caring about whether you eat your breakfast. Caring about whether you sleep well. Caring about whether you're happy. He looks up, his eye meeting mine. It's terrifying. Why? Because caring about you feels like betraying him. And not caring about you feels like betraying myself. The honesty in his voice breaks something open in my chest. I reach across the table, covering his hand with mine. Maybe it's not about betrayal. Maybe it's about healing. Is that what you think we're doing? Healing each other. I think, I say slowly, that we're both too broken to heal anyone. But maybe we can learn to live with the cracks. The storm hits just after midnight, rolling in from the ocean with a fury that makes the windows rattle and the entire compound shake. I've always been afraid of storms, a childhood fear that I never quite outgrew, and this one is worse than most. I'm huddled in my bed trying to ignore the thunder when my door opens. I expect Lydia may be coming to check on me, but it's Damon. He's wearing dark pants and a white shirt, both soaked through, his hair dripping water onto my carpet. The power's out in the east wing, he says, as if that explains his presence. I wanted to make sure you were all right. I'm fine, I lie, just as another crash of thunder makes me jump. He notices, of course. You're afraid of storms. I'm not afraid. Annabelle. His voice is gentle. It's all right to be afraid. Fear keeps us alive. Another flash of lightning illuminates the room and I can see him clearly for a moment. Really see him. His shirt is transparent with rain, clinging to muscles I've tried not to notice. His eye is softer than I've ever seen it, concerned rather than calculating. Would you like me to stay? I should say no. Should maintain whatever boundaries still exist between us. Should remember that he's my captor, my father's killer, the man who destroyed my world. That I nod. He kicks off his shoes and settles into the chair beside my bed, close enough that I can smell his cologne mixed with rain and something uniquely him. Better. Yes. And surprisingly it is. His presence is solid, reassuring in a way that makes no sense but feels completely natural. Tell me about your mother, he says suddenly. The real story, not the one your father told the world. I'm quiet for so long that I think he might assume I'm not going to answer. Then, she used to sing to me when I was afraid. Lullabies in Italian that her grandmother taught her. She had the most beautiful voice, like honey and smoke and sadness all mixed together. What happened to her? I don't know. The admission feels like a confession. One day she was there and the next she was gone. Papa said she was sick, that she needed special care. But I was old enough to know that people don't just disappear to get better. Did you ever try to find her? How? I was 12 when she left. Papa controlled everything. My education, my friends, my entire world. And after a while I convinced myself that maybe it was better not to know. Maybe some truths are too painful to bear. All truths are painful, he says quietly. But they're also necessary. Another flash of lightning, and this time I don't jump. Something about his voice, his presence, makes me feel safer than I have in years. Can I ask you something? I say. Anything. The eye patch. What happened? He's quiet for so long that I think he's not going to answer. Then, your father's men caught me when I was 23. I'd been asking too many questions about Luca's death, getting too close to the truth. They wanted to send a message. My stomach clenches. Oh God. They held me for 3 days. Tortured me. And on the third day, Silvio himself came to watch. He sat in a chair drinking wine while his men worked on me. When they brought out the knife, he told them to be creative. To make sure I'd remember. I'm sorry. The words feel inadequate, but they're all I have. Are you really? Even knowing what I did to him? Yes. Truthfully, I am. Despite everything, despite the blood and the pain and the destruction, I'm sorry that a young man was tortured because he wanted justice for his murdered family. Why? Because you were innocent then. Because you were just a man who lost his brother. Because what they did to you was wrong, no matter what came after. He turns to look at me, and in the dim light I can see something shift in his expression. You're going to be the death of me, Ana Cicero. Why? Because you make me want to be better than I am. And that's the most dangerous thing of all. Something fundamental has shifted between us. I can feel it in the way he looks at me, in the way I catch myself watching for him throughout the day, in the way our conversations have become less about his revenge and more about us. Today he's found me in the library again, but instead of his usual business attire, he's wearing jeans and a simple black sweater. The casual clothes make him look younger, more approachable, more human. Reading anything interesting? He asks, settling into the chair across from mine. I hold up the book, a collection of Pablo Neruda's poetry. I found it on one of the high shelves. The binding is falling apart, but the words are beautiful. Read me something. I don't think. Please. There's something in his voice, a vulnerability I haven't heard before. I flip through the pages, stopping at a poem that's been haunting me for days. Love is so short, forgetting is so long, I read. It was the hour of departure, the hard cold hour which the night fastens to all the timetables. Go on. I love you still among these cold things. Sometimes my kisses go on those heavy vessels that cross the sea towards no arrival. I see myself forgotten like those old anchors. I stop reading, suddenly aware of how intimate the words sound in the quiet library, how they seem to hang in the air between us like a confession. Do you believe that? He asks. That love is short and forgetting is long. I used to think so. My parents seemed to forget they loved each other somewhere along the way. But now. I close the book, meeting his gaze. Now I think maybe some kinds of love are impossible to forget. Maybe they become part of you even when you wish they wouldn't. Even when they destroy you. Especially then. We sit in silence for a while, the weight of unspoken words heavy between us. Then he reaches across the small space separating us and touches my hand. Just barely, just his fingertips against my knuckles, but it sends electricity shooting up my arm. I should go, he says, but he doesn't move. Probably. This is complicated. Yes. You're supposed to hate me. I know. I killed your father. I know that too. Then why? Because you're not the monster I expected you to be, I say, echoing his words from weeks ago. Because you read poetry and mourn your dead brother and worry about whether I'm eating enough. Because you're gentle with me even when you don't have to be. Annabelle. My name on his lips sounds like a prayer and a curse all at once. I know it's wrong. I know I should hate you. But I can't seem to make myself feel what I'm supposed to feel. And what do you feel? The question hangs between us, dangerous and loaded with possibility. I know that whatever I say next will change everything, will cross a line we can never uncross. I feel like I'm falling, I whisper. And I don't know if you're going to catch me or let me hit the ground. I don't know either. His honesty should terrify me, but instead it makes me lean forward, closing the distance between us. Then I guess we'll fall together. He kisses me. It's not desperate or hungry. It's soft, tentative, like he's afraid I might break. His hand cups my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone, and I taste wine and danger and something that might be hope. When we break apart, we're both breathing hard, foreheads touching, eyes closed. This is insane, he whispers. Completely. I should stop this. Before it goes too far. But you won't. No. God help me, I won't. That night as I lay awake on my bed, I could feel my lips still burning from Damon's kiss, my mind reeling with the realization that I crave her captor's love and attention. I touch my grandmother's necklace still around my throat, and wonder how disappointed my father would be in me. Then I realized I don't care much about him anymore. What I fear is Kathy's judgment. You're a traitor. My conscience whispers to me. I immediately silence it. For some reason I think I'll be able to live with myself. The last few days have been a blur of stolen moments and careful glances. Damon has been busy with business. Meetings with lawyers and accountants and men in expensive suits who speak in coded language about things I'm not supposed to understand. But I catch him watching me across the dinner table, and I feel his presence even when he's not in the room. Today, Frank approaches me in the garden where I've been reading. He's a mountain of a man, all scar tissue and controlled violence, but his eyes are kind when he looks at me. Miss Cicero, he says in his heavily accented English. Boss wants to see you. In his office. I follow him through the compound, noting the increased security, the way the guards nod respectfully as we pass. Whatever's happening, it's big. Damon's office is a war room today. Maps cover every surface, marked with red pins and black lines. Computer screens show financial data, shipping schedules, and what looks like surveillance footage from various locations. He's standing with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Russian. Tell Grigory that his timeline is unrealistic. We need another week minimum. He hangs up, turns to face me. Annabelle. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? You always have a choice. That's what makes this so complicated. What's happening? The compound feels like it's preparing for war. He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture I've learned means he's stressed. There's a problem. A big one. The Galvanis are making moves, trying to force my hand. They want you and Kathy delivered to them by the end of the month. My blood goes cold. And I've told them that's not going to happen. Which means they're going to try to take you by force. So what do we do? The word slips out before I can stop it. We. As if we're a team, as if we're in this together. We? He asks, raising an eyebrow. I start to backtrack, but he stops me with a look. No, you're right. We. Because somewhere along the way this stopped being about revenge and started being about something else entirely. What? You tell me. I look at him, really look at him. At the way he's watching me like I might disappear at any moment. At the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand keeps moving toward his gun when he thinks I'm not looking. At the dark circles under his eyes that tell me he's been losing sleep. You're protecting me, I say, the realization hitting me. Yes. Even though it puts you at risk with your own people. Yes. Why? He crosses the room in 3 strides, backing me against the wall. His hands frame my face, thumbs brushing across my cheeks, and I can see my reflection in his eye, wide-eyed, flushed, looking nothing like the sheltered princess I was 2 months ago. Because I'm falling in love with you, he says, the words rough and honest and terrifying. Because you've gotten under my skin and into my blood and I can't seem to get you out. Because the thought of anyone hurting you makes me want to burn the world down. Damon. I know it's wrong. I know I'm probably going to hell for it. But I can't seem to care about anything else anymore. I should pull away. Should remind him that this is Stockholm Syndrome, that I'm traumatized and confused and not thinking clearly. Should tell him that whatever I think I feel for him is just a survival mechanism. Instead, I rise up on my toes and kiss him. This time there's nothing tentative about it. This time it's hungry and desperate and full of all the things we can't say out loud. His hands tangle in my hair and I taste desire and something that might be redemption. When we break apart, I can see something shift in his expression. Something that looks like faith that things are going to turn out okay. So what happens now? I ask. Now, he says, we figure out how to survive this. Together. And if we don't? Then we go down fighting. The attack comes at dawn. I wake to the sound of gunfire and shouting, to Frank pounding on my door and yelling at me to get dressed. By the time I'm pulling on clothes, the whole compound is in chaos. Men running through the halls with weapons, security alarms blaring, the acrid smell of smoke drifting in through the windows. Miss Cicero. Frank bursts into my room without knocking. We need to go. Now. What's happening? Galvani's. They're making their move. Bastards. Damon Vane refused their request to hand my sister and I over, and so they've resorted to bloodshed. He grabs my arm, pulling me toward the door, but I dig in my heels. Where's Damon? Boss is handling it. My job is to get you out. I'm not leaving without him. Miss. I said I'm not leaving. Frank studies my face and something in my expression must convince him because he nods grimly. Then stay close and do exactly what I tell you. We make our way through the compound, Frank's massive form shielding me from the worst of the chaos. Through the windows I can see men in black tactical gear surrounding the building, their faces covered, their weapons trained on the house. We find Damon in his office, standing behind his desk with a phone in one hand and a gun in the other. His shirt is torn and there's blood on his knuckles, but his eye is blazing with fierce determination. Don't care what it takes, he's saying into the phone. End this. Now. He looks up as we enter, his expression softening slightly when he sees me. You should be gone by now. I'm not leaving you. Annabelle. No. We're in this together, remember? You don't get to send me away when things get dangerous. He stares at me for a long moment, then nods. All right. But if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. Deal. The sound of splintering wood echoes through the compound, followed by more gunfire. Damon's jaw tightens. They're in the house, Frank reports grimly. How many? 12, maybe 15. More outside. Can we hold them? For a while. But boss. Frank's expression is grim. They're not just here for the girl. They're here for you too. Damon's smile is sharp and dangerous. Then let's give them what they came for. He tosses Frank a key. Get her to the safe room. No matter what happens, you keep her safe. Damon, no. This is what I do, Bella. He cups my face in his hands, pressing a hard kiss to my lips. This is who I am. But I promise you I will come back for you. You better. Is that a threat, Miss Cicero? Despite everything, despite the gunfire and the chaos and the very real possibility that we might not survive the next hour, I smile. It's a promise, Mr. Vane. He laughs, actually laughs. And for a moment the dangerous criminal falls away, leaving only the man who reads poetry and worries about whether I'm eating enough. I love you, he says, the words simple and honest and devastating. I love you too. The admission hangs between us for a heartbeat, perfect and terrifying and absolutely true. Then Frank is pulling me away and Damon is checking his weapons, and the world explodes into violence and chaos and the desperate hope that love might be enough to keep us alive. As Frank leads me through the hidden passages of the compound, I can hear the battle raging above us. I can hear Damon's voice, calm and commanding even in the middle of hell. And I realize that somewhere in the last 2 months, I've stopped being Silvio Cicero's sheltered daughter and become something else entirely. I've become a woman who chooses her own fate. I've become a woman who loves a dangerous man. I've become a woman who's willing to fight for that love no matter the cost. The thought terrifies me. The thought exhilarates me. The thought changes everything. Chapter 4: Velvet Chains. 2 weeks have passed since that first kiss in Damon's study, and I find myself marking time not by the calendar, but by the subtle shifts in our dangerous dance. But this place is becoming less of a prison and more like home. The thought terrifies me. Ana, please look at me. I reach across the mahogany table during our supervised lunch, my fingers barely grazing Kathy's before she pulls away. Her wrists are bird-thin now, delicate bones visible beneath translucent skin. The defiant fire that once burned in her eyes has dimmed to barely flickering embers. "You're disappearing," I whisper, glancing at the guard stationed by the door. He pretends not to listen, but I know better. After the Galvani's failed attack, Damon's surveillance of us, especially Kathy, has increased significantly. So I know that everything here is heard and everything is reported back to Damon. Kathy pushes the untouched soup around her bowl, creating small whirlpools in the cream. "Maybe that's the point," she says, her voice hollow. "Maybe disappearing is the only escape left." The words slice through me. While I've been growing stronger, more confident in this twisted new world, my sister has been withering away. I've watched her refuse meals, sleep for days at a time, speak only in monosyllables when pressed. The grief for our father mingles with the trauma of captivity, creating a perfect storm that's destroying her from the inside. "Kathy, please. He's poisoning you." Her voice gains strength, cutting through my plea. "Don't let him sink his tentacles into you. He's a monster, Ana. There are better men outside this place. Don't make the same mistake Mama made. You should know better." The comparison to our mother hits me with devastating force. I think of Dahlia's haunted eyes, her trembling hands, the way she would sometimes stare at nothing for hours. Had she loved Papa despite knowing what he was? Had she made the same rationalizations I find myself making about Damon? "I'm trying to survive," I say, but the words sound weak even to me. "No." Kathy leans forward, her intensity frightening. "You're trying to live. There's a difference. Survival means waiting for rescue, for escape, for justice. But you're settling in. You're making yourself comfortable in hell." Her hatred of Damon is pure, untainted by the complexity that now colors my own feelings. She sees him as our father's killer, period. She hasn't been subjected to his intellectual seduction, his careful manipulation, his moments of surprising vulnerability. In Kathy's eyes, I see my own moral compromise reflected, and it's devastating. "You don't understand," I begin, but she cuts me off. "I understand perfectly. You're falling in love with him." The words drop between us like stones. You're falling in love with the man who murdered our father, and you're telling yourself it's survival. But it's not, Ana. It's betrayal. The guard steps forward as Kathy's voice rises, but I wave him back. My sister's pain is raw, undiluted, and I realize with crushing clarity that my adaptation has been a luxury she cannot afford. While I've been learning to navigate this world, she's been drowning in it. "He killed Papa," she continues, tears streaming down her gaunt cheeks. "He destroyed our home, our family, everything we ever knew. And you are sharing his bed." The accusation hangs between us, brutal in its simplicity. I want to explain the complexity, the gradual erosion of certainty, the way Damon has slowly revealed the depths of Papa's crimes. But looking at Kathy's broken form, I realize that explanations would only sound like justifications. I'm trying to protect us, I say weakly. You're trying to protect yourself. She stands swaying slightly. From guilt, from grief, from the truth. But I won't let you drag me down with you. I won't pretend this is anything but what it is. Captivity, torture, psychological warfare. I won't smile and play house with our father's killer. She leaves then, escorted by the guard, and I'm left alone with the weight of her words. The soup grows cold, but I can't bring myself to eat. For the first time in months, I see my situation clearly, not through the lens of adaptation or survival, but through the eyes of the sister I'm losing. 2 weeks later, Damon presents me with a dress that transforms me into someone I barely recognize. The midnight blue silk clings to curves I didn't know I possessed, and the designer's label whispers of wealth beyond imagination. My grandmother's necklace glitters at my throat, the rubies catching the light like drops of blood. You look. Damon pauses, adjusting his cufflinks. Even in formal wear, he carries himself like a predator, elegant and lethal. Magnificent. The word sends heat through me, and I hate how much I crave his approval. Where are we going? A charity gala. The mayor's wife is quite insistent about raising funds for the new children's hospital. His smile holds dark humor. She doesn't know who's funding the largest donation, of course. The irony isn't lost on me. Blood money washing clean through charity, violence transformed into virtue through the alchemy of wealth. But as we step into the bulletproof Mercedes, I can't deny the thrill of freedom, even if it's only temporary. The gala is held at the city's most exclusive hotel, its ballroom dripping with crystal and gold. I've attended events like this before. Papa's world overlapped with high society in ways I'm only beginning to understand. But tonight I see it differently. The smiles are sharper, the laughter more brittle, and the undercurrents of power run deeper than I'd ever imagined. Mrs. Vane, a silver-haired man, approaches, his political pin catching the light. How lovely to see you again. The name stops me cold. Mrs. Vane. I've become an extension of Damon's identity, a prop in his performance of respectability. But as the evening progresses, I find myself slipping into the role with disturbing ease. I charm senators' wives with carefully neutral political observations. I discuss Renaissance art with museum directors, drawing on my expensive education. I deflect probing questions about my background with practiced grace, weaving half-truths into believable narratives. You're remarkable, Damon murmurs as we dance to a string quartet. His hand spans the small of my back, possessive and warm. Born for this world. Or bred for it, I reply, thinking of Papa's careful cultivation of my social skills. Same difference. The music swells around us, and I'm struck by how natural this feels. The performance, the manipulation, the careful dance of high society. It's all familiar territory. I'm good at this, and the realization should disturb me more than it does. But then I overhear a conversation that cuts through my complacency like a blade. The Riverside project is moving forward, a city councilman tells Damon during a brief break in the dancing. The families have been given notice. 6 months to relocate. Generous, Damon replies, his tone neutral. The original plan was 30 days. Your influence helped extend the timeline. Though I must say the compensation package could be more robust. Damon's laugh is soft, dangerous. The compensation is fair market value. If they wanted more, they should have invested in better lawyers. I watch this exchange with growing horror. Hundreds of families, displaced from their homes for a development project that will line the pockets of men like these. Damon negotiates their lives with the same cold efficiency he applies to everything else, and the reminder of his true nature cuts through my romantic fantasies like a blade. Power is currency, he explains later as we ride back to the compound. Those people may not like what I do, but they respect what I can do for them. And the families being displaced? I ask, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Are receiving fair compensation for property they couldn't afford to maintain anyway. His tone is matter-of-fact without a trace of guilt. The new development will provide jobs, increase property values, and bring investment to a decaying area. The greater good, as they say. The greater good, I repeat, tasting the bitter irony. And who decides what that is? People like me. He turns in his seat, studying my face in the passing streetlights. People with the power to make things happen, the vision to see beyond sentiment, and the will to act. Your father understood this. It's why he was successful for so long. The comparison to Papa stings, but I can't deny its accuracy. How many times had I heard similar justifications from him? How many times had I accepted them without question? You're angry, Damon observes. I'm learning, I reply, and something in my tone makes him smile. Good. Anger is useful. It means you're thinking, not just feeling. He reaches across the space between us, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. I don't want a mindless doll, Ana. I want a partner who can challenge me, who can see the world as it really is. Back at the compound, I can't shake the image of those displaced families. I pace my room, still in the designer gown, my thoughts churning. When I finally work up the courage to confront Damon, I find him in his study, reviewing documents by lamplight. You're troubled, he says without looking up. The families from the Riverside Project. I begin, then stop. How do I articulate the moral complexity that's tearing me apart? Ah. He sets down his pen, giving me his full attention. You disapprove. I don't know what I think anymore. The admission comes out more vulnerable than I intended. 3 months ago I would have been horrified. Now, I find myself understanding your logic, and that terrifies me. Why? He rises, moving toward me with that predatory grace. Because you're becoming complicit? Because you're starting to see the world as it really is, not as you were taught to see it. I back up until I hit the bookshelf, surrounded by leather-bound volumes that speak of culture and education. Because I'm becoming like you. No. His hands brace on either side of me, trapping me against the books. You're becoming yourself. The real you, not the sheltered princess your father created. The woman who can look at hard choices and understand that sometimes there are no good options, only necessary ones. Those families will be better off in the long run. The area they're leaving is crime-ridden, poverty-stricken, a dead end for their children. The new development will bring opportunities, jobs, a chance for real prosperity. His fingers tilt my chin up, forcing me to meet his gaze. You want me to be better than I am. You want to reform me, to find the good man buried beneath the monster. But what if there isn't one? What if this is all I am? The question hangs between us, raw and honest. I study his face, seeing the scar that runs from his temple to his jaw, the patch that covers his damaged eye, the hard lines that speak of violence and loss. He's not asking for absolution or forgiveness. He's asking for acceptance. Then I'll love the monster, I whisper. The words surprise us both. They escape before I can stop them, a confession that changes everything. I've admitted, not just to Damon but to myself, that my feelings have evolved beyond Stockholm Syndrome into something far more dangerous. His intake of breath is sharp, surprised. Ana. I know what you are, I continue, my voice gaining strength. I know what you've done, what you're capable of. And I know that loving you makes me complicit in all of it. But I can't seem to stop. He kisses me then, hard and desperate, as if he can consume my confession and make it part of himself. I kiss him back with equal fervor, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. The taste of whiskey and danger floods my senses, and I realize I'm addicted to both. "Are you sure?" he asks against my lips, his breathing ragged. Instead of answering, I reach for the buttons of his shirt, my fingers working with surprising steadiness. He watches me with that intense focus that makes me feel like the only thing in his world that matters. When I push the fabric aside, revealing the map of scars across his chest, I trace each one with reverent fingers. "These tell a story," I murmur. "A violent one." His voice is rough, uncertain in a way I've never heard before. "A survivor's story." I meet his eyes, seeing the vulnerability he tries so hard to hide. "You're not the only one with scars, Damon. Some of us just hide them better." He lifts me then, carrying me to the leather couch with surprising gentleness. The designer gown pools around us like liquid midnight as he worships my body with a reverence that contradicts his reputation for cruelty. His touch is fire and ice, possession and surrender, and I lose myself in the contradictions. We make love with desperate intensity, as if we can burn away the moral complexity through sheer physical need. I give myself to him completely, holding nothing back, and in return he shows me a vulnerability that I know he's never shared with anyone else. Afterward, we lie entwined in the lamplight, our breathing slowly returning to normal. His fingers trace abstract patterns on my bare shoulder, and I feel the weight of what we've just done settling over us. "There's no going back," he says quietly. "I know." I turn in his arms, studying his face. "I crossed that line months ago. Tonight just made it official." He smiles then, a real smile that transforms his face. "My dark angel," he murmurs, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "My beautiful, dangerous angel." As I drift off to sleep in his arms, I think about Kathy's words. She's right, I am falling in love with our father's killer. But what she doesn't understand is that the choice was never really mine to make. From the moment Damon Vane walked into our lives, this outcome was inevitable. The only question was whether I would fight it or embrace it. I've made my choice. God help me, I've made my choice. Chapter 5: Thorns and Secrets. Spring arrives with unseasonable warmth. By mid-April, I realize with startling clarity that 6 months has passed since that night when everything changed, since gunshots shattered my 19th birthday party, since I watched my father die, since my world collapsed and rebuilt itself around a man I should hate but can't stop loving. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm spending the night in Damon's bed, wearing his ring on my finger. Not a wedding band, but a gift and a promise of something deeper and more dangerous than marriage. The ruby matches my grandmother's necklace, and I wonder if she would approve of the choice I've made. Somehow I think she would understand. Women in our family have always loved dangerous men. The peace we've built is shattered on a Tuesday morning in late April. Kathy found out that Damon and I are sleeping together. I didn't tell her. He heard it from Lydia. Or the guards. Or maybe she just sensed it. "How could you?" she spat during a supervised visit. "You let that murderer crawl between your legs like a goddamn reward." I stayed quiet. "You think this is love? You think he sees you as anything but Silvio's pawn? You're disgusting." My hand moved before my mind caught up. The slap cracked the air like thunder. "You hit me," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." She dashed into the kitchen before I could finish my sentence, grabbed a knife and ran towards the dining room. I got to the dining room to find Kathy standing over Damon, the knife pressed to his throat. Blood seeps from a cut on his hand where she managed to slice him before his reflexes kicked in. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," she hisses, her grip shaking but determined. "I will never stop fighting you. Never." Two guards move to flank her, but Damon raises his uninjured hand, stalling them. His face is calm, almost amused, as if my sister's rebellion is nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "Kathy," I say carefully, moving into the room. "Put the knife down." "No." She doesn't look at me, her focus entirely on Damon. "I'm done watching you play house with this monster. I'm done pretending this is anything but what it is: captivity, torture, psychological warfare." "She's becoming a liability," Damon says later, after the guards have subdued Kathy and taken her back to her room. He's having the cut on his hand stitched by the compound's doctor, his face expressionless as the needle works. My men are starting to see her as a threat. Some of them are suggesting permanent solutions. The words hit me like ice water. "You can't be serious." "I'm always serious about threats to my organization." He flexes his fingers, testing the bandage. "Your sister attacked me with a weapon. In any other circumstances she would already be dead. But these aren't any other circumstances." I move closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. "She's my sister, Damon. The only family I have left. Family you barely speak to anymore." His tone is matter-of-fact, but I hear the underlying challenge. "When was the last time you had a conversation with her that didn't end in accusations and tears?" He's right, and we both know it. The distance between Kathy and me has grown with each passing month, a chasm carved by different responses to the same trauma. While I've adapted, she's resisted. While I've found ways to thrive, she's chosen to suffer. And now that suffering has become dangerous. "She's grieving," I say, but the words sound hollow even to me. "She's unstable." He stands, moving to the window that overlooks the compound. "And unstable people make impulsive decisions. Today it was a dinner knife. Tomorrow it could be something worse. How many of my men do you think she'd be willing to kill to get to me?" The question hangs in the air, and I realize with growing horror that I don't know the answer. The Kathy I grew up with would never hurt an innocent person. But the Kathy I see now, hollowed out by grief and rage, is capable of anything. "What are you asking me to do?" I ask, though I already know. "Find a way to control her or watch her die." He turns back to me, his face serious. "I'm giving you a choice, Ana. It's more than most people in her position would get." The weight of responsibility settles on my shoulders like a lead blanket. I'm not just fighting for my own survival anymore. I'm all that stands between my sister and the darkness that surrounds us. The realization is both terrifying and oddly empowering. "She needs help," I say finally. "Professional help, not imprisonment. Then find her some." He moves closer, his hand cupping my face. "But understand this. If she becomes a threat to you, to me, or to what we're building here, I won't hesitate to eliminate her. Sister or no sister." The casual delivery of the threat chills me, but I also hear the underlying message. He's willing to work with me to find a solution that doesn't end in Kathy's death. It's more consideration than most people would receive, and I'm grateful for it, even as I hate that I need to be. For weeks I became her warden. I read to her, lied to her, promised her I was plotting our escape. She listened. Sometimes. Other times she stared through me like I was already dead. I didn't care if she hated me. I only cared that she lived.
Hi there, dark romance fans. This is Amy Seymour, author of this book. I hope you're enjoying Anna's dark and twisted journey so far. If you're finding yourself captivated by this story, please take just a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Your support means everything to me as an independent author. Every like tells me you want more of these psychologically intense, morally complex, dark romances, and every subscription helps me reach other readers who crave the same forbidden stories that bring us all some excitement. I have more dark tales brewing in my mind, but I can only continue creating these worlds if I know you're out there, hungry for more. Show me you do by subscribing. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. That's it from me. Now back to the story.
3 days after the knife incident, I'm searching through Damon's desk for blank stationery when I find a file marked with a name I haven't seen in years. Ana Cicero. My hands tremble as I open it, and what I find inside reframes everything I thought I knew about my family. The truth about our mother's disappearance is more complex than either Kathy or I realized. She wasn't just institutionalized. She was systematically discredited and imprisoned by Papa when she threatened to expose his criminal activities. According to the documents, Dahlia had been documenting Papa's crimes for months, photographing documents, recording conversations, building a case she planned to take to the FBI. Papa discovered her plan and used his connections to have her declared mentally incompetent, then locked away in a private facility where she couldn't hurt his organization. The medical records make for horrifying reading. Forced medication, electroshock therapy, isolation, all designed to break her spirit and destroy her credibility. For 6 years she endured hell while Papa told us she was recovering, that she needed time and space to heal. But the most shocking revelation is at the bottom of the file. An escape report dated 6 years ago. Dahlia had managed to get away during a thunderstorm, overpowering a guard and disappearing into the night. Her current whereabouts are unknown, but there are reports of a woman matching her description living under various aliases in the Pacific Northwest. She's still alive, I breathe, staring at the documents. I wondered when you'd find that. Damon's voice comes from the doorway, and I look up to see him leaning against the frame, his expression unreadable. You knew. The accusation comes out sharper than I intended. I've known for months. He enters the room, moving to pour himself a drink. Your mother was a brave woman. Too brave for her own good. She tried to save you and your sister from your father's world, but she underestimated how far he'd go to protect his empire. And you didn't tell me because I wasn't sure you were ready for the truth. He settles into the chair across from me, his gaze intense. Your mother's story doesn't have a happy ending, Ana. She escaped, yes, but she's been running ever since. Paranoid, broken, afraid of her own shadow. The woman you remember doesn't exist anymore. The words hit me like physical blows, but I force myself to process them. She escaped 6 years ago. She could be anywhere by now. She could be. He takes a sip of his whiskey, studying me over the rim. The question is, what do you want to do about it? The possibilities swirl in my mind. Finding Dahlia could mean answers, closure, the chance to understand what really happened to our family. But it could also mean opening old wounds, confronting truths that might be too painful to bear. I want to find her, I say finally. I want to know what happened, what she discovered about Papa that was worth destroying her life to expose. And if she's not the woman you remember, if she's broken beyond repair, then at least I'll know the truth. I close the file, my decision made. Will you help me? Damon is quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. This isn't a game, Ana. If we start looking for your mother, we're opening a door that can't be closed. Her enemies are still out there, still looking for her. Finding her means putting all of us at risk. But you'll do it anyway. Yes. He sets down his glass, his eyes meeting mine. Because you're asking me to. Because it matters to you. And because... He pauses as if searching for the right words. Because I think you need to understand where you came from to know where you're going. The offer hangs between us, loaded with implications I'm only beginning to understand. By helping me find Dahlia, Damon is essentially offering to unravel the lies that built my childhood, to expose the truth about the family that shaped me. It's an act of trust that goes both ways. He's trusting me with his resources, his time, his attention, and I'm trusting him with my deepest need for answers. There's something else, he says, his voice dropping. Something you need to understand before we start down this path. What? Your mother's investigation wasn't just about exposing your father's crimes. It was about protecting you and Kathy from inheriting them. She was trying to break the cycle, to ensure that neither of you would be drawn into the family business. He leans forward, his expression serious. By staying here, by choosing this life with me, you're doing exactly what she was trying to prevent. The irony is devastating. In trying to save myself and Kathy, I've become exactly what our mother feared most. A willing participant in the very world she paid a hefty price trying to escape. The realization should shame me, but instead, it crystallizes something I've been feeling for months. Maybe, I say quietly, she was fighting the wrong battle. Meaning, maybe the answer isn't to escape this world but to change it. I stand, moving to the window that overlooks the compound. You've built an empire on violence and fear. But what if it could be something else? What if all that power could be used for something better? The silence stretches between us, heavy with possibility. When I turn back to face him, Damon is watching me with an expression I can't quite read. You want to reform me, he says finally. Turn me into one of the good guys. I want us to be better than our parents were. I move closer, my voice gaining strength. Both of us. Together. He stands then, closing the distance between us. When he takes my hands, I feel the calluses on his palms, the evidence of a life lived in violence. But I also feel the gentleness he reserves only for me, the possibility of something different. All right, he says, his voice rough with emotion. Let's find your mother. Let's see if we can build something better from the ashes of what came before. As we shake hands on the agreement, I realize I'm not just his prisoner anymore, or even his lover. I'm becoming his partner in a different kind of crime. The crime of hope, of believing that people can change, that love can transform even the darkest hearts. The file on Dahlia sits forgotten on the desk as we seal our pact with a kiss that tastes of whiskey and possibility. Outside, the compound continues its daily rhythms, but inside this room, everything has changed. We're no longer just surviving our circumstances, we're planning to transcend them. The thought terrifies and exhilarates me in equal measure. In exactly 1 year, I've gone from sheltered princess to willing accomplice to something I never expected. A woman with the power to reshape the world around her. Whether that power will be used for good or ill remains to be seen, but for the first time since that night in September, I feel truly alive. The future stretches before us, dark and uncertain but full of potential. And as Damon pulls me closer, I realize that I'm no longer afraid of what we might become. I'm only afraid of what we might lose along the way. Chapter 6. The Hunt. 3 weeks since I asked Damon to help me find my mother, and with each passing day, the line between captor and partner blurred until it disappeared entirely. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Damon's study as I spread photographs across his mahogany desk. Each image told a piece of my mother's story, fragments of a life I'd never known existed. April had melted into May, May into June, and now July's heat pressed against the glass like an insistent whisper. "Tell me about this one again," Damon said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of focused intensity that made my pulse quicken. He pointed to a photograph of my mother from 15 years ago, her dark hair flowing freely, her smile genuine in a way I'd never seen during my childhood. I leaned closer, our shoulders touching as I studied the image. "She used to paint," I said softly. "Before Papa. Before everything changed. She had this little studio in the West Wing that he had sealed off when I was 7. I always wondered why." Damon's fingers traced the edge of the photograph, careful not to smudge the surface. She was documenting his activities, he said. These aren't just family photos, Ana. Look at the backgrounds, the dates. She was building a case. The realization hit me like ice water. My mother hadn't been the fragile, broken woman I remembered. She'd been a warrior fighting a war I'd been too young to understand. She was gathering evidence, I whispered. For 2 years, Damon confirmed. My contacts at the facility confirmed it. She played the perfect patient while secretly recording everything. Names, dates, financial transactions. Your father thought he'd broken her, but she was planning her escape the entire time. I stood and walked to the window, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. The compound felt different now, less like a prison and more like a sanctuary where I could finally piece together the truth of my past. The night she escaped. September 23, 2018. During a thunderstorm that knocked out the facility's security cameras for 47 minutes. Damon's voice was clinical, but I could hear the admiration underneath. She climbed through a bathroom window, walked 17 miles in the rain to reach a bus station. No money, no identification, just the will to survive. The image of my mother walking through that storm, drenched and desperate but determined, sent a shiver through me. She chose freedom over comfort, I said. Over safety. She chose truth over lies, Damon corrected. Just like you're doing now. I turned back to face him, struck by the parallel. Is that what this is? My own escape. His dark eyes met mine and I saw something there that made my breath catch. You tell me, Bella. Are you still my captive? The question hung between us, loaded with months of tension and transformation. I thought of the woman I'd been 8 months ago, sheltered, naive, trapped in a different kind of cage. Now I stood here as his equal, pursuing my own truth, making my own choices. No, I said simply. I'm your partner. The corner of his mouth curved upward and he stood, crossing to where I waited by the window. Then let's find her. By mid-June, our investigation had become a dance of shared discoveries and intimate collaboration. We worked side by side, and I began to understand the intoxicating pleasure of being Damon's intellectual equal. Portland, I said, sliding a manila folder across the desk. Sarah Mitchell, age 44. Trauma counselor at the Cascade Women's Center. Damon studied the surveillance photos, his expression unreadable. She's been there for 3 years. Clean record, exemplary employee reviews. She's built a new life. Helping other women escape, I added, unable to keep the wonder from my voice. While we were trapped, she was saving other people's daughters. The irony wasn't lost on me. My mother had found freedom and used it to free others, while I had found captivity and transformed it into something else entirely. We were both survivors, but we'd chosen different paths through the darkness. She goes by Sarah now, Damon said, studying a photo of my mother leaving the women's center. She looked older, her hair shorter and streaked with silver, but there was a strength in her posture that I'd never seen before. She's been careful. No social media, pays cash when possible, changes her routine regularly. She's still running, I realized. After all these years, she's still afraid. Your father had a long reach, Damon said quietly. Even from the grave. I traced my finger along the edge of the photograph, studying this stranger who shared my face. She doesn't know he's dead. No. My people confirmed it. She's been living as if he could find her at any moment. The weight of that revelation settled over me. While I'd been mourning my father, she'd been hiding from him. While I'd been learning to love his killer, she'd been living in fear of his shadow. We need to be careful, I said. If we approach her wrong, she'll disappear again. Damon nodded, his hand covering mine on the desk. We'll take it slow. Let her come to us. Chapter 7. The Venice Solution. The Kathy problem, as I'd begun thinking of it, reached its breaking point in late June. While I was consumed with finding my mother, my sister was disappearing into her own darkness. I found her in the garden, sitting motionless on a stone bench, staring at nothing. The roses around her were in full bloom, their fragrance almost overwhelming in the humid air, but Kathy seemed oblivious to their beauty. "You missed lunch again," I said, settling beside her on the bench. She didn't respond immediately, just continued staring at the fountain in the center of the garden. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. "I dream about Papa every night." My heart clenched. "Kathy. He's always asking why I didn't save him. Why I let the monster win." Her eyes, when they finally met mine, were red-rimmed and haunted. "I can't answer him, Ana. I can't tell him that his daughter fell in love with his killer." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I forced myself to remain calm. "You're not responsible for saving him. Neither of us could have." "You've forgotten who killed him," she interrupted, her voice rising. "You've forgotten who we're supposed to hate." "I haven't forgotten," I said firmly. "I've just learned that hate is a luxury we can't afford." She laughed bitterly. "A luxury? Ana, it's all we have left of him. Our rage, our grief. It's the only thing that proves we loved him." I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Love isn't about preserving pain, Kathy. It's about choosing to live despite it." "Then I choose death," she whispered. "I choose to join him rather than betray him." The casual way she said it terrified me more than any threat Damon had ever made. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" She stood abruptly, smoothing her dress with shaking hands. "I've been saving them, Ana. The pills they give me for sleep. I have enough now." The world tilted. "Kathy, no. You've made your choice," she said, backing away from me. "You've chosen him over us, over Papa's memory. Now I'm making mine." She was gone before I could respond, leaving me alone among the roses with the weight of her words and the terrible understanding that I was losing her just as surely as I'd lost our father. The solution came from an unexpected source. Aunt Francesca, Papa's sister in Venice, had been trying to reach us for months. "She's been writing," Damon said, placing a stack of letters on his desk. "My people intercepted them, but I think it's time you saw them." I picked up the top envelope, noting the elegant script and the Venice postmark. Inside, Francesca's words were warm and desperate. "My dearest nieces, I have heard whispers of what happened to Silvio. Please know that you have family who loves you, who wants to help. Venice is waiting for you. Come home." "She doesn't know the full story," I said, reading through more letters. "She thinks we're hiding somewhere, that we chose to disappear." "She's offering sanctuary," Damon said. "For both of you." The implication was clear. This was my chance to give Kathy what she needed. Distance from me, from Damon, from the choices I'd made that were slowly killing her. "You'd let her go?" I asked. "I'd let you both go," he said quietly. "If that's what you wanted." The offer hung between us, genuine and heartbreaking. I could see the truth in his eyes. He would sacrifice his own happiness for mine, would release us both if he thought it would save me from the path I was walking. "I can't leave," I said. "Not yet. Not until I find her. Your mother. And not until I know who I'm meant to be." I met his gaze steadily. Kathy needs to go. She needs space to learn how to live without hate, without the weight of our choices. That night, I sat with Kathy in her room, watching her pack the few belongings she'd accumulated during our months of captivity. The pills were gone. I'd found them and flushed them down the toilet while she slept, but the darkness in her eyes remained. "I can't watch you become his," she said, folding a sweater with mechanical precision. "But I can't watch you die either. Maybe Venice will give me space to figure out how to live without Papa, without rage. I love you, I said, the words feeling inadequate but necessary. Whatever happens, whatever I become, that will never change. She looked up at me then, and for a moment I saw my sister again. Not the broken girl who'd been planning to overdose, but the fierce, protective woman who'd stood beside me through everything. I can see it, you know, she said softly. The way you look at him. I don't understand it, but I can see that it's real. Kathy. I can't forgive him, she continued. I may never be able to. But I can forgive you for choosing to live. We held each other then, two survivors preparing to walk different paths through the darkness. In the morning she would leave for Venice, and I would remain here to face whatever came next. But that night, we were just sisters again, saying goodbye to the girls we'd been and the future we'd once imagined sharing. Chapter 8. Consummation. With Kathy safely in Venice, I found myself alone with Damon in a way I'd never been before. Damon and I had stopped being intimate for her sake. The house felt different without her presence, less like a prison, more like a home. July faded into August, and with it the last of my reservations. The private island appeared on the horizon like a mirage, all white sand and crystal clear water. Damon's yacht cut through the waves with quiet efficiency, carrying us away from the compound, from the weight of surveillance and expectations. No security detail, I observed, noting the absence of his usual entourage. Just us, he confirmed, his hand finding mine at the ship's rail. For the first time in months, it's just us. The island was small but perfectly appointed. A sprawling villa hidden among palm trees, with terraces that overlooked the ocean. As we approached the dock, I felt something shift inside me, a recognition that this trip would change everything. How long have you owned this place? I asked as we walked up the winding path from the beach. 5 years, he said. Luca always fantasized about enjoying the serenity of a private island. I needed somewhere to go when the world became too much. The mention of his brother's name still affected him. I could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. But he was sharing this sacred space with me, this retreat where he came to grieve and heal. Thank you, I said simply, for bringing me here. He stopped walking and turned to face me, his hand cupping my cheek with surprising gentleness. Ana, you need to understand something. I'm not a good man. I never will be. The things I've done, the blood on my hands, it doesn't wash off just because I love you. I'm not asking you to be good, I said, covering his hand with mine. I'm asking you to be mine. The kiss was inevitable, drawn from months of tension and desire and the terrible, beautiful understanding that we were both beyond redemption. His lips were soft against mine, but there was nothing gentle about the way he pulled me closer, the way his hands tangled in my hair. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, I saw my own hunger reflected in his eyes. I want you, I whispered. I've wanted you for months. Are you sure? He asked, his forehead resting against mine. Once we cross this line, there's no going back. You'll be mine completely and I'll be yours. The world will see you as my woman, my partner. Are you ready for that? I thought of the girl I'd been a year ago, sheltered and naive, who would have been horrified by this moment. Then I thought of the woman I'd become, forged in fire and shadow, who understood that love wasn't always pure or simple. I'm ready, I said. I've been ready. He carried me to his bedroom as the sun set over the water, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The room was simple but elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered an unobstructed view of the ocean. I've imagined this, he said, setting me down gently beside the bed. Every night since that first kiss, I've imagined having you here on this island, having all of you. Then stop imagining, I said, reaching for the buttons of his shirt. Take me. His hands covered mine, stilling my movements. Not like that. Not rushed, not desperate. You deserve better than that. I deserve you, I said firmly. However you want to give yourself to me. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Then let me worship you properly. His fingers traced the line of my collarbone, the hollow of my throat, the sensitive skin behind my ear. Each touch was deliberate, reverent, as if he was memorizing every inch of my body. When he began to undress me, it was with the same careful attention, his lips following the path of his hands. You're beautiful, he murmured against my skin. So beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. I arched beneath his touch, my body singing with sensations I'd never experienced. When he laid me back on the bed, his eyes dark with desire, I felt powerful and vulnerable simultaneously. I love you, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I love you, and I'm terrified of what that means. It means we're both lost, he said, his voice rough with emotion. And maybe that's where we need to be. When he joined me on the bed, skin against skin, I understood what he meant. We were both damaged, both marked by violence and betrayal, but in each other's arms we found something like peace. He made love to me with a passion that bordered on desperation, as if he was trying to claim every part of my soul. And I gave myself to him completely, holding nothing back, letting him see the darkness I'd been hiding even from myself. I'm not good either, I confessed afterward, my head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. I think about the people who hurt you, who hurt us, and I want them to suffer. I want to make them pay. That's not darkness, he said, his fingers combing through my hair. That's justice. Is it? I asked. Or am I becoming just like you? You're becoming who you were always meant to be, he said. Strong enough to survive, ruthless enough to protect what matters. That's not evil, Ana. That's evolution. We made love again as the moon rose over the water. Slower this time, learning each other's bodies with a patience we hadn't possessed before. He showed me pleasures I'd never imagined, and I discovered a hunger in myself that matched his own. I'm yours, I whispered in the darkness. Completely yours. And I'm yours, he replied. Whatever that means, whatever it costs, I'm yours. We spent 3 days on the island, and when we returned to the compound, everything had changed. I was no longer a captive or even a guest. I was the woman of the house, Damon's partner in every sense of the word. The household staff treated me with a deference that was both flattering and unsettling. Lydia, who had been caring for me since my arrival, smiled warmly when she saw the change in my demeanor. You look happy, miss, she said in her broken English. Like you find what you're looking for. In a way I had. I'd found my place in this strange new world, found my purpose alongside the man who destroyed my old life. But finding my mother remained the key to understanding who I was meant to become. The Portland contact confirmed it, Damon said when we resumed our investigation. She's definitely Sarah Mitchell. The resemblance is unmistakable. I studied the newest photographs, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. My mother loading groceries into her car, walking to work, sitting alone in a cafe reading a book. She looked peaceful in a way I'd never seen during my childhood, but there was a wariness in her posture, a constant alertness that spoke of years spent looking over her shoulder. She's still afraid, I said. Even after all this time. She doesn't know Silvio is dead, Damon reminded me. To her, he's still out there, still hunting. Then we need to tell her, I said. We need to let her know she's free. Carefully, Damon warned. If we approach her wrong, she'll disappear again. We may never find her. Then we don't approach her at all, I said suddenly. We let her come to us. Damon raised an eyebrow. How? Through the Women's Center. We make a donation, a large one in my name. Ana Cicero. She'll recognize it and she'll have to decide whether to run or reach out. That's a risk, Damon said. If she runs, then we'll find her again, I said with a confidence that surprised me. We'll keep finding her until she's ready to face the truth. 2 weeks later, we made the donation. $100,000 to the Cascade Women's Center, earmarked for their emergency shelter program. The accompanying letter was brief. In memory of Silvio Cicero, who can no longer hurt anyone. From his daughter who survived. We waited. And on a rainy Tuesday in early September, exactly 1 year after the night that changed everything, my phone rang. Ana. The voice was older, more cautious than I remembered, but unmistakably my mother's. Is it really you? Yes, Mama, I said, tears streaming down my face. It's me. I saw the news, she said softly. About your father. I never thought. I never dared hope. He's gone, I said. We're free. There was a long pause filled with years of pain and separation. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. I've missed you so much, baby girl. I've missed both of you. I've missed you too, I said. And I have so much to tell you. I know, she said. I know about him. About Damon Vane. The man who killed your father. My blood turned to ice. Mama. I want to meet him, she said, surprising me. I want to meet the man who freed us all. The line went quiet except for the sound of our breathing, 2 women processing a lifetime of grief and separation and the possibility of something new. Are you ready for that? I asked. I've been ready for years, she said. I just didn't know it yet. When I hung up, Damon was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. She wants to meet you, I said. And you? He asked. What do you want? I thought of the year that had passed, of the woman I'd become, of the love I'd found in the ashes of my old life. I want us to be a family, I said. All of us. Whatever that looks like. He crossed the room and pulled me into his arms, holding me tight against his chest. Then we'll make it work, he said. Whatever it takes. As I stood there in his embrace, I realized that the hunt for my mother was over. But the real journey, building a future from the fragments of our broken past, was just beginning. The reunion was scheduled for the following week, and as I prepared to see my mother again after 9 years, I knew that everything would change once more. But this time I was ready. This time I was strong enough to face whatever came next. Chapter 9. Redemption's Price. The September rain pelted against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Damon's penthouse office, each drop a reminder that exactly 1 year had passed since my father's death. As I stood beside Damon's mahogany desk, watching him review financial reports with the same intensity he once reserved for planning executions, I marveled at how completely our lives had transformed. The numbers are better than expected, I said, setting down the quarterly projections. The casino licenses in Nevada cleared their final regulatory hurdle yesterday. Damon looked up from the documents, his single eye finding mine with that familiar intensity that still made my pulse quicken. The eye patch had become less of a reminder of violence and more of a symbol of survival. His and mine. You've been invaluable through this transition, Ana. I couldn't have done this without you. It was true. Over the past months, I'd discovered talents I never knew I possessed. My father's blood ran through my veins, carrying an instinct for numbers, strategy, and the delicate dance of power. But where Silvio had used these gifts to build an empire of fear, I was helping Damon construct something entirely different. There's something else, Damon said, his voice taking on that particular tone that meant he was about to reveal something significant. He reached into his desk drawer and withdrew a leather folder I'd never seen before. "I've been working on this for weeks. I wanted to wait until I was certain before showing you." My heart began to race as he opened the folder. Inside were architectural plans, legal documents, and photographs of a sprawling compound in the hills outside Los Angeles. But these weren't the blueprints of a fortress or a criminal headquarters. They were plans for a legitimate business empire. "What is this?" I whispered, though part of me already knew. Damon stood and moved to the window, his silhouette dark against the storm outside. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight I'd never heard before. Not the cold calculation of a killer, but the vulnerable hope of a man daring to dream of redemption. "I want to give you a life without shadows," he said. "I want our children to be proud of their father's name." The words hit me like a physical force. Children. Our children. We'd spoken of the future in abstract terms, but this was concrete, real, terrifying in its possibility. "Damon," I began, but he turned from the window, his expression more serious than I'd ever seen it. "I'm proposing we dismantle everything, Ana. The drug operations, the protection rackets, the illegal gambling rings. All of it. We transition everything we can into legitimate businesses and cut loose what we can't." I sank into the leather chair across from his desk, my mind reeling. The magnitude of what he was suggesting was staggering. His organization controlled millions of dollars in illegal activities, employed hundreds of people, and had connections throughout the criminal underworld. Dismantling it safely would require years of careful planning and enormous risk. "The lieutenants," I said finally. "What do they think?" Damon's jaw tightened. "They're split. Vincent sees the wisdom in going legitimate. He's tired of looking over his shoulder, tired of wondering if his daughter will grow up without a father. But others, like Torino, see it as weakness. They think I've gone soft." "Have you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. He was across the room in 3 strides, his hands framing my face with a gentleness that still surprised me. "I've grown smart, Ana. There's a difference. I've learned that true power isn't about how much fear you can inspire. It's about how much you can build. And I want to build something with you." The kiss he gave me was different from our previous encounters. Not desperate or stolen, but sure and claiming. When he pulled away, his forehead rested against mine. "This won't be easy," he continued. "Rival organizations will see the transition as weakness, an opportunity to steal territory and eliminate a major player. Some of our own people will resist the change. There will be attempts on our lives, on your life specifically, because they'll know you're the one influencing me." "I'm not afraid," I said, and realized I meant it. The sheltered girl who'd cowered on her birthday balcony was gone, replaced by someone who understood that power came with a price, and that some prices were worth paying. Over the following weeks, as October gave way to November, I threw myself into the transition with an intensity that surprised even me. The work was intoxicating in ways I'd never experienced. In my father's world, I'd been a protected ornament, valuable only for my potential marriage prospects. Here with Damon, I was valued for my mind, my instincts, my ability to see patterns and possibilities that others missed. We worked 18-hour days, transforming drug money into real estate investments, illegal gambling into legitimate casinos, and protection rackets into private security firms. The complexity was staggering. Every transaction had to be carefully laundered through legitimate channels. Every connection had to be severed or transformed. Every loose end had to be tied up without leaving traces that could implicate us later. I found myself in meetings with lawyers, accountants, and business executives who had no idea they were helping to legitimize a criminal empire. I learned to speak their language, to present our proposals in terms they could understand and approve. My father had taught me to be charming when necessary, but this was different. This was using charm as a weapon, as a tool for construction rather than destruction. The danger was constant and real. 3 attempts were made on Damon's life during those 2 months, and I realized that my presence made him vulnerable in ways he'd never been before. I became a target myself, requiring constant protection and careful planning for every public appearance. One evening in early November, as we reviewed the final documents for our casino acquisition, Damon looked up from the papers with an expression I couldn't read. "You're enjoying this," he said. It wasn't a question. I set down my pen and considered his words. "Yes," I admitted. "I am." "Does that frighten you?" The question hung between us like a challenge. Did it frighten me? The old Ana would have been horrified by the thrill I felt when closing a complex deal, by the satisfaction I derived from outmaneuvering opponents who underestimated me because of my age or gender. But the old Ana had been weak, naive, unprepared for the realities of the world she'd been born into. "No," I said finally. "It doesn't frighten me. It excites me." Damon smiled then, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in weeks. "Good. Because I have something else to show you." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a small black box. My heart stopped as he opened it, revealing a ring that took my breath away. It wasn't the ostentatious display of wealth that might have been expected. No massive diamond or gaudy setting. Instead, it was a single ruby surrounded by smaller diamonds, elegant and understated but unmistakably valuable. "Ana," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Will you marry me?" The question should have been impossible. This man had killed my father, destroyed my family, held me captive for months. By every conventional measure, I should have hated him, should have been planning my escape, should have been horrified by the very suggestion. Instead, I felt a surge of joy so pure and unexpected that it nearly brought me to tears. "Yes," I whispered, and then stronger, "Yes, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto my finger, I understood that this wasn't just a proposal. It was a declaration. We weren't just choosing to spend our lives together. We were choosing to build something new from the ashes of what we'd destroyed. Our love story had become something larger than either of us had imagined. A battle for the soul of an organization built on violence. A fight to prove that redemption was possible even for the damned. The ruby caught the light as I moved my hand, and I thought of my grandmother's necklace, still around my throat after all this time. Both pieces of jewelry carried the weight of history, but where the necklace represented the past, this ring represented the future. A future we would create together, whatever the cost. Chapter 10, Equally Yoked. The Tuscan sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson as I stood before the mirror in my bridal suite, adjusting my grandmother's necklace one final time. The ruby and diamond pendant rested against my collarbone, its weight both familiar and symbolic. Today I would marry the man who had killed my father while wearing the jewelry that had once symbolized my family's power. "You look beautiful, Sorella," Kathy said from behind me, her voice carrying the complicated mix of love and concern that had defined our relationship since her return from Venice. I turned to face my sister, drinking in the sight of her. The months with Aunt Francesca had been transformative. The hollow-eyed, broken girl who'd left us had been replaced by someone who carried her pain with dignity rather than letting it consume her. She'd found purpose in Venice, working as an art restorer and slowly building a life that didn't revolve around our father's legacy. "Thank you for coming," I said, taking her hands in mine. "I know this isn't easy for you." Kathy squeezed my fingers gently. "I may not understand your choices, Ana, but I understand you. And I love you enough to support you even when I don't agree." The words meant more to me than she could possibly know. Over the past 2 months, as Damon and I had planned our wedding, I'd been acutely aware of how isolated I'd become from the normal world. Our guest list was a surreal mix of former criminals, legitimate business partners, family members, and a few brave souls who straddled both worlds. "Mrs. Vane," came a voice from the doorway. I turned to see Lydia, the woman who'd first brought me meals during my captivity, now serving as my personal assistant and confidant. "It's time." The wedding venue was a luxury resort nestled in the hills of Tuscany, its terraced gardens and ancient olive groves providing a backdrop that was both romantic and strategically defensible. Security was discreet but comprehensive. Men in expensive suits who moved with the fluid grace of professional killers, blending seamlessly with the legitimate security hired to protect the various politicians and business leaders in attendance. As I walked down the aisle, I caught glimpses of faces that told the story of our transformation. Vincent Torino, once Damon's most trusted lieutenant, now served as the head of our private security firm. His wife and daughter sat beside him, living proof that it was possible to build a legitimate life from illegitimate beginnings. Near the back, I spotted several faces I recognized from my father's world. Men who'd once been enemies but now found themselves partners in our new enterprise. Their presence was a testament to Damon's skill at negotiation and my own growing reputation as someone who could bridge the gap between the old world and the new. But it was the figure in the front row who made my breath catch. Dahlia, my mother, sat with her hands folded in her lap, her silver hair elegantly styled, her eyes bright with tears. Her attendance was the most powerful symbol of all. By giving her blessing to this marriage, she was acknowledging that I had chosen a different path than her own, not running from the darkness but learning to wield it for better purposes. Damon waited for me at the altar, resplendent in a tailored tuxedo that emphasized his lean, dangerous elegance. The eye patch had been replaced for the occasion with a specially designed prosthetic that made him appear whole, though I knew he would return to the patch afterward. He'd learned to use his scars as symbols of strength rather than weakness. The ceremony itself was a masterpiece of symbolism and careful choreography. Father Fabrizio, a priest who'd known my family for decades, performed the service with the kind of gravitas that made even hardened criminals bow their heads in respect. The vows we exchanged were traditional, but I could see in Damon's eyes that he understood their deeper meaning. We weren't just promising to love each other. We were promising to honor the transformation we'd undergone together. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Father Fabrizio said, his voice carrying across the garden. "You may kiss the bride." Damon's kiss was tender, restrained, appropriate for the public setting. But in that brief moment when our lips met, I felt the electric current that had always existed between us, the dark magnetism that had drawn us together despite every rational reason to remain apart. The reception was a carefully orchestrated display of our new status. The menu featured dishes from both our heritages, Sicilian specialties that honored my father's memory alongside Northern Italian cuisine that reflected Damon's family background. The wine flowed freely, loosening tongues and creating the kind of atmosphere where former enemies could find common ground. I moved through the crowd with practiced ease, playing the role of the perfect bride while simultaneously conducting business. A subtle word here, a meaningful glance there. I was learning to use social occasions as opportunities for negotiation and alliance building. "You've changed," Kathy observed when we found ourselves alone for a moment on the terrace. "We all have," I replied, watching Damon through the French doors as he spoke with a group of investors. "The question is whether we've changed for the better." "Have you?" she asked, and I could hear the genuine curiosity in her voice. I considered the question carefully. The girl who'd stood on the balcony at Villa Cicero would have been horrified by the woman I'd become. I was comfortable with violence when necessary, skilled at manipulation when required, and capable of making decisions that would have once seemed impossible. But I was also building something meaningful, Something that could outlast the darkness that had created it. I think so, I said finally. I hope so. The evening continued with speeches and toasts, each one carefully crafted to present our union in the best possible light. Damon spoke about redemption and second chances, his words carrying the weight of genuine conviction. I talked about the power of love to transform even the most broken souls, and I saw tears in my mother's eyes as she listened. But it was Vincent's toast that surprised me most. The man who'd once been completely loyal to the old ways raised his glass and said, "To Damon and Ana, proof that it's never too late to choose a different path." As the evening wound down and the guests began to depart, I found myself alone with Damon in the bridal suite. The weight of the day, the significance of what we'd accomplished, settled over us like a warm blanket. "No regrets?" he asked, helping me out of my wedding dress with the kind of reverent care that made my heart flutter. "None," I said and meant it. The months that followed our wedding were a whirlwind of activity and adjustment. We relocated to Los Angeles, where Damon's transition to legitimate business was largely complete. The sprawling mansion in the Hollywood Hills that became our home was both fortress and sanctuary. Security was still necessary, but it was more discreet, more professional. By January, I was pregnant with our first child, and the reality of impending motherhood added weight to every decision we made. I was determined that our children would grow up free from the shadows that had defined my own childhood, but I was also aware that some darkness would always remain. What kind of world are we bringing them into? I asked Damon one evening as we stood on our balcony, looking out over the city lights of Los Angeles. My hand rested on my still flat stomach, protective and possessive already. "A better one than the world we inherited," he replied, his arm around my waist. "And if it's not better enough, we'll keep working to improve it." I thought about the journey that had brought us here, from the terrified girl at her birthday party to the woman who commanded respect in boardrooms and backrooms alike. The transformation had been painful, sometimes brutal, but it had also been necessary. I'd learned that survival wasn't just about enduring hardship. It was about growing stronger because of it. The threats still came, of course. Former associates who couldn't adapt to the new reality, rival organizations testing our resolve, government agencies suspicious of our rapid legitimization. But we faced them together with the kind of partnership that only comes from shared sacrifice and mutual respect. I touched my grandmother's necklace, still around my throat after all this time. It was no longer a symbol of my father's protection or Damon's possession. It was a reminder of my own strength, my ability to survive and transform even the darkest circumstances. "Are you happy?" Damon asked, his voice soft in the darkness. I considered the question carefully. Happiness seemed like such a simple word for the complex mix of emotions I carried. I was content, fulfilled, purposeful. I was building something meaningful with someone I loved deeply. But I was also aware of the cost of our redemption, the prices we'd paid and the ones we'd continue to pay. "Yes," I said finally. "I'm happy. Are you?" His kiss was answer enough. As I stood there in his arms, our unborn child growing inside me, I understood that this was what victory looked like. Not the absence of darkness, but the triumph of light despite it. Not the erasure of the past, but the conscious choice to build something better from its ashes. The ruby in my necklace caught the city lights, glowing like a small flame against my skin. Soon I would pass it down to our daughter, along with the story of how love could transform even the most broken souls. It would be a different story than the one my grandmother had told, but it would be ours, forged in blood and shadow and redeemed by the power of choice. In the distance, the lights of Los Angeles spread out like stars, each one representing a life, a story, a possibility for transformation. We were part of that vast tapestry now, no longer hiding in the shadows but stepping boldly into the light, ready to face whatever came next together. Chapter 11. Blood and Roses. The morning sun filters through the Italian cypress trees, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn of our Malibu estate. I watch from the French doors of our bedroom as my 3 daughters play in the rose garden below, the same garden where Damon proposed to me 4 years ago, where he knelt among the thorns and promised me a life built on something more than blood and vengeance. 7 years. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, sometimes like yesterday. The woman who stood on that marble balcony at Villa Cicero, drowning in silk and diamonds while her world crumbled around her, feels like a stranger now. That terrified 19-year-old girl who watched her father die, who kissed her captor in a moment of desperate longing, she's still here, woven into the fabric of who I've become, but transformed by time and choice and the weight of building something beautiful from ashes. Giselle runs between the rose bushes, her dark hair streaming behind her like a banner of war. At 6, she already has her father's intensity burning in those storm-gray eyes, paired with what Damon teasingly calls my calculating mind. She's the leader of the 3, organizing elaborate games and adventures, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Sometimes I catch her watching the security detail with the same analytical gaze I once used to study Damon's compound, and I wonder if she'll inherit more than just his eyes. "Mama, look." Lydia calls out, holding up a perfect pink bloom she somehow managed to pick without getting caught on the thorns. At 4, she's the gentle one, the dreamer who sees beauty in everything. Her twin sister Lucia stands beside her, identical in appearance but opposite in temperament, bold where Lydia is cautious, fierce where her sister is soft. They balance each other the way Damon and I learned to balance each other, dark and light, creating something neither could achieve alone. The twins have my dark hair but their father's storm-gray eyes, and sometimes when they look at me with that piercing intensity, I'm transported back to that first night in his study, when he showed me the photo of his brother Luca and I saw past the monster to the man beneath. These daughters of mine, born from violence and love in equal measure, carry the best of both worlds. Damon's strength and my resilience, his strategic mind and my intuition. I step onto the terrace, breathing in the scent of roses and ocean air. The house behind me is nothing like the compound where I first learned to love my captor. This is a home, not a fortress, though the discreet security cameras and the armed guards who blend seamlessly into the landscape remind me that some shadows never fully disappear. The architecture is modern and open, all glass and light, as if Damon was determined to build something transparent after so many years of living in darkness. "You're thinking too hard again." Damon's voice rumbles behind me and I feel his arms circle my waist, pulling me back against the solid warmth of his chest. His breath is warm against my ear, and even after all these years, the simple touch sends electricity through my veins. "Just remembering," I murmur, leaning into him. His hands are gentle now, though I can still feel the calluses from his past life, the slight tremor in his left hand from the bullet wound he took during the transition. That scar is one of many he carries from those dangerous months when we dismantled his empire and rebuilt it into something legitimate. The entertainment company, the real estate holdings, the private security firm, all of it built on the bones of his criminal past but transformed into something our children can be proud of. "Good memories or bad?" he asks, though his tone suggests he already knows the answer. We've learned to read each other's silences, to interpret the weight of unspoken words. It's a skill born from those early days when every conversation was a negotiation, every touch a calculated risk. Both, I admit. All of it. The whole messy, beautiful, terrible journey. He turns me in his arms and I study his face in the morning light. The eye patch is gone now, replaced by a prosthetic that looks almost real. though he still covers it with his hand sometimes when he's thinking deeply. The scars have faded but never disappeared, a roadmap of violence that led him to redemption. At 35, he's grown into his power in a way that makes him more dangerous than he ever was as a criminal. But now that danger is channeled into protecting what we've built, into creating a legacy our children can inherit without shame. The board meeting is at 10, he says, but there's no urgency in his voice. These days, business waits for family time, not the other way around. Davidson wants to discuss the acquisition. I nod, though my mind is already shifting into the strategic mode that's become second nature. The entertainment company is expanding into streaming, and we're acquiring a production studio that specializes in international content. It's the kind of legitimate business deal that would have been impossible in the old days, when every transaction was tainted by blood money and every contract sealed with threats. I'll be ready, I say, but I don't move from his embrace. These moments of peace are still precious to me, still feel stolen from a life that could have gone so differently. What time is Kathy arriving? Her flight lands at 3. His voice is carefully neutral when he mentions my sister. After 7 years, they've reached a place of mutual respect, but the wounds are still there, barely healed. Kathy will never forgive him for taking our father's life, and Damon will never apologize for it. But they've learned to coexist for my sake, to build a fragile peace around their shared love for me and my children. Giselle's laughter draws our attention back to the garden, where she's teaching the twins some elaborate game involving rose petals and what looks like a complex set of rules only she understands. They follow her lead with the kind of absolute trust that makes my heart ache. They don't know about the darkness in their parents' past, not yet. They know their father is powerful, that men in expensive suits come to the house and speak to him with reverence and fear. They know their mother helps run the business, that she's respected and feared in her own right. But they don't know about the compound, about the deaths, about the blood that watered the soil from which their perfect life grew. When will we tell them? I ask, though we've had this conversation before. When they're old enough to understand that people can change, Damon says. That love can transform even the darkest hearts. It's a conversation we'll have many times in the years to come. How do you explain to innocent children that their father was once a killer, that their mother fell in love with her captor? How do you teach them about redemption without glorifying violence, about transformation without minimizing the cost? The security detail shifts almost imperceptibly as a black car pulls through the gates, and I recognize the subtle movement that means Dahlia is arriving for her weekly visit. My mother, who spent years in a psychiatric facility not because she was ill but because she dared to challenge my father's empire, has become the grandmother I never imagined she could be. She runs her foundation from an office in Santa Monica, helping women escape abusive situations, turning her own trauma into healing for others. "Nana!" The twins shriek in unison, abandoning their game to race toward the car. Giselle follows at a more dignified pace, but I can see the excitement in her eyes. Dahlia has that effect on them. She's the one who tells them stories about art and literature, who teaches them that strength comes in many forms, that survival is its own kind of victory. Dahlia emerges from the car with her usual grace, her silver hair catching the sunlight. At 62 she's still beautiful, but it's a beauty hardened by suffering and refined by survival. She wears a simple linen dress and carries herself with the quiet confidence of someone who's stared into the abyss and chose to climb back out. "My darlings," she says, gathering the twins into her arms while Giselle receives a more formal hug. The relationship between Dahlia and the children is complex. She adores them, but I sometimes catch her watching them with a worried expression, as if she's searching for signs of the violence that marked her own family. "Anna," she says, kissing my cheek. "You look tired. Board meeting today. I explain, though I know she's really asking about the deeper exhaustion that comes from constantly balancing our public life with the private truths we carry. And Kathy's visiting. Something flickers in Dahlia's expression. Approval, perhaps, or relief. She's been the architect of our family's slow healing, the one who insisted that forgiveness was possible even when it seemed impossible. She's never asked me to choose between my sister and my husband, but I know she worries about the fractures that still exist, the wounds that haven't fully healed. Damon, she says, her voice carefully polite. They've reached a place of mutual respect over the years, but it's built on pragmatism rather than affection. She's grateful for the life he's given me, for the safety and stability he provides for her granddaughters. But she can't forget what he took from her, the husband and father-in-law who, despite his crimes, was still family. Dahlia, he responds with equal formality. The children have been asking about your trip to Venice. Oh yes, she says, her face lighting up. I have so much to tell you about your Aunt Kathy's latest restoration project. She's working on a 16th century fresco that was damaged in the war, bringing it back to life piece by piece. The metaphor isn't lost on any of us. Kathy has found her peace in restoration, in taking broken, damaged things and making them whole again. She's married now to a gentleman named Leonardo who knows nothing of our family's history, who sees only the quiet, thoughtful woman who can make damaged art sing again. She's pregnant with their first child, a daughter they'll name Rosa. And sometimes I think she's chosen that name as a way of reclaiming beauty from the thorns of our past. Will she bring pictures? Giselle asks, and I'm struck by how much she sounds like me at that age. Curious, intelligent, hungry for knowledge about the world beyond our protected bubble. Many pictures, Dahlia promises. And stories about the artists who created such beauty centuries ago. The morning passes in a blur of domestic routine that still feels miraculous to me. Breakfast on the terrace, the girls chattering about their lessons with their private tutor, Damon and I stealing glances across the table like teenagers instead of parents approaching their 30s. The security detail maintains their discreet presence, but they're part of the fabric of our life now, as natural as the gardeners and housekeepers who help maintain our carefully constructed paradise. At 10, I slip into my office for the board meeting, transforming from mother to businesswoman with practiced ease. The video conference connects me to executives in New York, London, and Tokyo, and for an hour I'm immersed in market analysis and acquisition strategies. This is the woman I became in the ruins of my father's empire. Sharp, strategic, unafraid of power. Damon taught me that strength isn't about violence. It's about control, about understanding leverage and knowing when to use it. The acquisition goes through with minimal resistance. The production studio will give us access to international markets, expanding our reach in ways that would have been impossible when we were limited by the constraints of illegal enterprises. It's another step in our journey toward complete legitimacy, another door closed on the past. When the meeting ends, I find Damon in his study, reviewing security reports with the same methodical attention he once brought to planning heists. The threats against us have diminished over the years, but they haven't disappeared entirely. Families who lost loved ones to Silvio's organization, former associates who felt betrayed by Damon's transition to legitimate business. They surface occasionally, reminders that redemption doesn't erase history. Anything concerning? I ask, settling into the chair across from his desk. This room is his sanctuary, lined with books and artwork that reflects the man he's become rather than the one he was. The gun safe is still there, hidden behind a false panel, but it's supplemented now by family photos and children's artwork. Nothing urgent, he says, but I catch the slight tension in his shoulders. The Torino family made some noise about the waterfront development, but it's mostly posturing. They know better than to move against us directly. The waterfront development is one of our most ambitious projects, transforming a section of the harbor into luxury condominiums and retail space. It's the kind of legitimate business venture that generates substantial revenue while providing jobs and improving the community. But it's also the kind of project that attracts attention from families who remember when that waterfront was used for very different purposes. I'll have Rodriguez increase the security detail for the next few weeks, Damon continues. Just as a precaution. I nod, though the familiar knot of anxiety forms in my stomach. This is the price of our transformation. Constant vigilance, the knowledge that our past will always cast shadows over our future. But it's a price I've learned to accept, even embrace. Better to live with purpose and danger than to exist in comfortable meaninglessness. At 3 o'clock we gather at the private airfield to meet Kathy's flight. The girls are excited, bouncing with anticipation, and I'm reminded of how much they adore their aunt. To them she's the mysterious artist who lives in a fairy tale city, who sends them beautiful postcards and exotic gifts. They don't know about the months she spent in therapy, about the nightmares and the anger that consumed her after our father's death. They don't know how close we came to losing her to despair. The plane touches down with mechanical precision, and I watch through the terminal windows as the stairs extend and the door opens. Kathy emerges blinking in the California sunshine, her hand resting protectively on her rounded belly. Pregnancy has softened her angular features, given her a glow that makes her look more like the girl I remember from before our world collapsed. Aunt Kathy, the twins shriek, racing toward her with the kind of enthusiasm that makes the security detail tense slightly. But Kathy just laughs, gathering them into her arms as best she can with her growing belly. "My beautiful girls," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "You've grown so much since Christmas." Giselle hangs back slightly, old enough to sense the complex emotions that swirl around these family reunions. She's always been perceptive, picking up on the subtle tensions that the adults try to hide. When Kathy extends her hand, Giselle takes it with a solemnity that breaks my heart. "How is your baby?" Giselle asks, her small hand hovering over Kathy's belly. "Growing strong," Kathy says. "She kicks all the time, especially when I'm trying to work on my paintings." The drive back to the house is filled with chatter about Venice, about Leonardo's family vineyard, about the restoration project that's consuming Kathy's professional life. But I catch her watching Damon in the rearview mirror, and I know she's still searching for signs of the man who killed our father. 7 years of evidence that he's changed, that he's become something more than the monster she remembers, but the wound is still there, barely healed. Dinner is a careful dance of conversation and silence. Damon and Kathy maintain their polite détente, speaking to each other through me and the children, avoiding direct confrontation while acknowledging each other's presence. The girls are oblivious to the tension, chattering about their lessons and their friends, their plans for the summer. "I'm thinking of taking them to Italy this year," I say, watching Kathy's face light up. "Maybe they could visit you in Venice, see your studio." "I would love that," Kathy says, and for a moment she looks like the girl I remember from before the darkness consumed our lives. Leonardo has been asking about them, wondering when he'll finally meet his American nieces. "What does he know about us?" Damon asks, his voice carefully neutral. "That our father died when we were young," Kathy says, meeting his gaze directly for the first time that evening. "That you helped Ana build a new life. That you're complicated." It's perhaps the most diplomatic way she's ever described their relationship, and I see something shift in Damon's expression. Not quite gratitude, but acknowledgement of the effort she's making. After dinner, the children are tucked into bed with stories and kisses, and the three of us retreat to the terrace with wine and the weight of 7 years' worth of unspoken words. The night is warm, the air filled with the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of waves against the shore. "I'm proud of you," Kathy says suddenly, the words emerging with the force of long-held emotion. "Both of you. What you've built here, the life you've created for those girls. It's remarkable." "Thank you," I say, but I can hear the question in her voice, the thing she's afraid to ask directly. "But," Damon prompts, his tone careful. "But I still wake up sometimes and see his face," she admits. Papa's face in that moment when... She can't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. We all remember that night, that moment when our childhood ended and our adult lives began. "I understand," Damon says quietly. "I would feel the same way in your position." "Would you?" Kathy asks, and there's a challenge in her voice, a demand for honesty that cuts through years of careful politeness. "If someone had killed my father in front of me, no matter what crimes he'd committed, I would want revenge," Damon says. "The fact that you've chosen to build a life instead of seeking vengeance, it's more strength than I had at your age." It's the most honest conversation they've ever had, and I hold my breath, afraid to break the fragile moment of understanding. "I tried," Kathy says. "For months after I planned how I would kill you. I researched poisons, weapons, ways to get past your security. I wanted to make you suffer the way you made me suffer." "What stopped you?" he asks. "Ana," she says simply. "She was healing, building something new. And I realized that destroying you would destroy her too. I couldn't be the one to take away the happiness she'd found, even if I couldn't understand it." The silence that follows is heavy with the weight of roads not taken, of choices that shaped all our lives. I reach for both their hands, my sister's and my husband's, and for a moment we're connected by something more than blood or marriage, by the shared understanding that love and loss are often indistinguishable. "I won't ask you to forgive me," Damon says finally. "I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that not a day passes that I don't think about what I took from you. Not just your father, but your innocence, your sense of safety in the world. I can't give that back, but I can make sure your sister and your nieces never have to pay for my sins." "I know," Kathy whispers. "I can see it in how you look at them, how you've changed. Ana was right to choose you. I hate that she was right, but she was." We sit in silence as the night deepens around us. Three people bound together by violence and choice, by the complicated mathematics of forgiveness and redemption. The security lights cast long shadows across the garden, and I think about the roses that grow there, how they need both light and darkness to bloom. The next morning, Kathy and I walk through the rose garden while the girls are at their lessons. Her pregnancy has made her move more slowly, but there's a peace in her movements that wasn't there before. She stops at a particularly beautiful bloom, breathing in its fragrance with the kind of appreciation that comes from someone who's learned to find beauty in unexpected places. "I dream about her sometimes," she says, and I know she's talking about our mother. About what she would think of all this. "She's proud of you," I say. "Of both of us. We survived, Kathy. We didn't just survive. We found ways to thrive." "Do you think she would understand about Damon?" Kathy asks. "About why you chose him?" I consider the question carefully. Dahlia has never explicitly blessed my marriage, but she's welcomed Damon into our family with the same grace she's shown throughout her ordeal. She understands better than anyone how love can bloom in the darkest soil. "I think she would understand that love isn't always logical," I say. "That sometimes redemption requires believing in someone's capacity to change, even when the evidence suggests otherwise." "And Papa?" Kathy's voice is barely a whisper. "Papa would have wanted us to be happy," I say, though I'm not sure I believe it. Silvio Cicero was a complicated man, capable of great love and terrible violence. I'll never know if he would have approved of my choices, but I've learned to live with that uncertainty. We spend the rest of the morning in comfortable companionship, two sisters who found their way back to each other across the wreckage of their childhood. When it's time for her to leave, Kathy hugs me with the fierce desperation of someone who's learned not to take goodbyes for granted. "I love you," she says. "Even when I don't understand you, I love you." "I love you too," I reply. "Always." As her plane disappears into the afternoon sky, I feel the familiar ache of separation. But it's tempered now by the knowledge that we've found our way to a place of peace, that the poison of our past has been transformed into something that nourishes rather than destroys. That evening, Damon and I sit in the study while the girls sleep, reviewing the security reports that have become part of our nightly routine. The threats are minimal, mostly idle gossip and empty posturing, but we've learned never to take our safety for granted. In the distance, I can hear the ocean, the endless rhythm of waves against the shore. "Do you ever regret it?" I ask, the question emerging from the comfortable silence between us. "Which part?" he asks, though I think he knows what I mean. "All of it. The transformation, the legitimacy, the ordinary life we've built. Do you miss the excitement, the danger?" He considers the question for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his whiskey glass. "I miss the simplicity," he says finally. "When I was a criminal, the world was divided into enemies and allies, threats and opportunities. Now everything is more complicated. But I wouldn't trade this for anything," he says, gesturing toward the baby monitor that broadcasts the gentle sounds of our daughter's sleep. "I was a king in a world of violence, Ana. Now I'm just a father in a world of possibility. It's not even close to being a fair trade." I lean against him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing. This is the man I chose, the monster who became human through the alchemy of love and time. He's not perfect, he still makes decisions with the cold calculation of someone who's lived by violence, still carries weapons more sophisticated than most people know exist. But he's mine and I'm his, and we've built something beautiful from the ashes of our destroyed worlds. "I have something for you," he says suddenly, reaching into his desk drawer. He pulls out a small velvet box, and for a moment I'm transported back to that night 7 years ago when he gave me the ruby necklace that belonged to my grandmother. "It's not my birthday," I protest, but I take the box with trembling fingers. "It's the anniversary," he says. 7 years since that night at Villa Cicero. 7 years since I destroyed your old life and we started building this one." Inside the box is a ring. Not the elaborate diamond that marks our engagement, but something simpler and more meaningful. It's a band of white gold set with 3 small stones, a ruby for Giselle and 2 sapphires for the twins. Engraved on the inside are the words, "From ashes, roses." "It's beautiful," I whisper, slipping it onto my right hand. It fits perfectly, of course. Damon has always been meticulous about details. "You gave me daughters," he says. "You gave me a future worth fighting for. I wanted you to have something that represents what we've built together." I kiss him then, and it's different from those early kisses born of desperation and forbidden attraction. This is the kiss of 2 people who've chosen each other repeatedly, who've weathered storms and emerged stronger. It's the kiss of partners, of parents, of 2 people who've learned that love isn't just about passion. It's about the daily choice to build something together. Later, as we lie in bed listening to the ocean, I think about the journey that brought us here. From that marble balcony where I felt like a prisoner in silk and diamonds, to this moment of perfect domesticity. The girl who watched her father die in front of her, who fell in love with his killer, who chose to build a life from the ruins of her childhood. She's still here, woven into the fabric of the woman I've become. "What are you thinking about?" Damon asks, his voice drowsy with approaching sleep. "The future," I say. "What we'll tell the girls when they're old enough to understand." How we'll explain that sometimes the most beautiful roses grow from the bloodiest soil. We'll tell them the truth, he says. That love doesn't always look like what people expect. That redemption is possible even for monsters. That their parents chose each other again and again until that choice became unbreakable. And if they judge us for it, then we'll accept their judgment, he says. But we'll also show them the life we built, the love we created, the safety we provided. We'll let them decide whether the means justified the ends. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of the ring on my finger, the solid warmth of my husband beside me, the quiet sounds of our daughters breathing in the rooms down the hall. This is what we fought for, what we sacrificed for, what we transformed ourselves to achieve. Not just survival, but something more. A love that transcends its violent origins, a family that grows stronger from its broken foundation. 7 years ago, I was a princess in a tower, waiting for someone to rescue me. I never imagined that my rescuer would be the man who destroyed my world, that salvation would come disguised as damnation. But that's the thing about love. It doesn't follow the rules we think it should follow. It blooms where it chooses, transforms what it touches, creates beauty from the most unlikely materials. As I drift toward sleep, I can smell the roses from the garden below, their perfume carried on the ocean breeze. They're blooming in soil that we transported from Ana Cicero, soil that was once watered with blood, fed by the decomposition of our violent past. But they're beautiful anyway. Testament to the possibility of transformation, proof that even the darkest earth can nurture something pure. Tomorrow there will be board meetings and security briefings, school lessons and family dinners. The ordinary rhythms of the life we've built together. But tonight, in this moment of perfect stillness, I'm content to simply exist in the space between what we were and what we've become. The distance between destruction and creation, between blood and roses, between the darkness we emerged from and the light we've learned to create. This is our happily ever after. Not the fairy tale ending I dreamed of as a child, but something more complex and real. Built on a foundation of violence but reaching toward redemption. Rooted in pain but flowering into joy. It's not perfect, but it's ours, and that's enough. In the garden below, the roses continue to bloom, their beauty unmarked by the darkness of their origin. And in the morning, our daughters will pick them with innocent hands, never knowing that the sweetest flowers sometimes grow from the bloodiest soil. You have reached the end of this audiobook. What a journey! Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content from the author. Bye for now.